and to the citizens of Atwater. And the first one we're recognizing tonight is a young lady by the name of Sylvia Nelson. And Sylvia Nelson has been with the Atwater Elementary District for over 28 years, and she has been principal of the Elmerwood for 9 years. And Sylvia, we can't thank you enough for what you've given to our city, to our students, and just it's an outstanding service. And we just, on behalf of the city, we want to thank you so much for your service to the Atwater City Elementary District. Thank you. And on behalf I decided to honor each of these people separately because it is a major honor to do what they have done. And so we're going to be doing it. But this young lady gave 28 years to the citizens of Atwater and to our young people. And that needs to be recognized. The City of Atwater Certificate of Appreciation to Sylvia Nelson for 28 years of dedicated service to this Atwater Elementary School District. And we want to give her a round of applause. I'm also giving her the School Bus Award. That's an award that Ms. Fall has for people who have really dedicated, and you know, you cannot run a school without a school bus. And so, so when Sylvia sees the school bus, she'll remember at the time and the importance of the school bus. And it's a special honor that I give you that School Bus Award because for extra special people get extra special recognition. And this young man over here, Sylvia could not have done it without him. So we want to thank him. And here come the honeydews. Yes, sir. Sylvia, would you like to say something?
I just want to say thank you, Joan, to you and the council and the community. This is my home. I have a passion for children, and I've been blessed to be able to serve this district for this many years, and I look forward to doing some more in the future.
I don't think they'll let you go. And I want to send the regards from the superintendent, Sandy Schreiber. She's a little under the weather, and so she couldn't be out tonight. But we do want to, she wants to thank you and send her thanks to you. So thank you very, very much. Thank you. The next is the Avalas. So I'd like to see Mrs. Avila come forward, followed by her son and her husband. Come on forward, please. This young lady here happens to be, she has been with our district for over 30 years. Yes. You're sure? Yes. 33 years. Yes, plus. Now, this young man right here, he was also in the school district. He and I had the pleasure of working together when he was at Merced High School. And so he decided to retire a little earlier, but now the both of them are retired and get to do some wonderful traveling. And the young man next to them is their son.
Adrian Avila.
Adrian. So we appreciate them coming tonight. This young lady next to me served as principal at Bellevue. She served as principal at Mitchell's K through 6, and her last hurrah was at Eileen Coburn. So we just can't thank her enough for, she even retired a little bit, but we got her to come back. And we just want to thank her and everyone so much for what she's given to our wonderful Atwater Elementary District. And so she also receives the School Bus Award. And so I can't think of two better individuals to receive the School Bus Award because they both understand the importance of the school bus. You don't run a school without a school bus, and it has to be there when you want it and there when you need it to be somewhere else. So on behalf of the City of Atwater, we'd like to present this certificate
You wouldn't want me to do it any other way. Thank you. Don't laugh at me, Mr. Avila. It's not nice.
The City of Atwater Certificate of Appreciation to Mary Avila, 33 years of dedicated service to the Atwater Elementary District, and also I send the regards from the superintendent. She couldn't make it tonight, but she also says, thank you, job well done.
Thank you. Thank you to our mayor and our city council. It's truly been an honor to serve Atwater Elementary School District and the children. I have a lot of passion, I still do, for the children. I believe they're the treasure of our community. And we have a very special community, and I've always endeavored to really serve the children because they are the future. So thank you for this recognition. It's very much appreciated. And again, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the community and our children. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Give her another round of applause. She isn't going to be, she will be around, right? You'll be around. Yes, you will help us. Then that's the key. Both of these jewels will be here to help us and support us. So thank you again. Give her a round of applause and thank you. The next couple I'd like to honor are Dr. and Barbara Williamson and Dr. James Williamson. So would both of those young people come forward? We are honoring these two young people for a couple, two or three or four or five different reasons. The first reason is they were successfully ran a business in the city of Atwater for 31 years, the Williamson Counseling Center. So that's the first round of applause we need to do. There's few people who can run a business for 31 years and at the end of 31 years still be in business. So. Oh, yeah, and still married, yes, okay. And so, first of all, we will start with Barbara. Barbara has served our community in many, many different ways. And first, Barbara served on our Atwater Elementary District for over 20 years on our board, and we really can't thank her enough for doing that. And then in 2007, she decided that the Atwater Elementary District needed a foundation to support students that couldn't be supported in any other way, so you develop a nonprofit foundation. So Barbara and her crew just developed the Atwater Educational Foundation, right?
Educational Enrichment Foundation.
Yeah. Educational Enrichment. And so, in order to support that foundation, she and her crew do the concessions at the school-wide track meet, right? Yep, and a few other minor things like that. So, and then on top of that, she is also involved with Interact, and so she and her high school groups go all over the place, and there isn't a thing that she doesn't do. And then on top of that, she and this young man to the right of her decided to develop the Tree Partners Foundation. And this organization is something that's really been going and has really helped the city of Atwater. So, you know, she is right there next to this young man next to her, who is Dr. James Williamson, and he is the founder of the Tree Partners Foundation, and the city of Atwater happens to be a part of that, and it's really helped us, and he knows how to write grants, and he's the reason why we have the entrance to the city of Atwater, the Rotarian nice sign, because he was able to write a grant to get the money, and then also we have the Rotarian garden out in front of us, and so, but his thing that he really has done is the Tree Partners Foundation. And we've been able to help the city of Livingston, the city of Merced, the McSwain schools, all types of schools with various trees and developing the tree canopy. So I can't think of a better thing to give these two wonderful young people than a tree. And we are going to give you a blue oak, I think. And we are going to plant it next to the tree that we have already for our 90th birthday party, anyway, it's right out behind that. I think Dr. Williamson had a part, along with Mr. Ferretta, taking care of the first oak, so now he can take care of the oak that is going to be in his honor and Barbara's honor. So we will get all of those wonderful things together, but I just thought that we needed to somehow honor these young people for what they've given to the city of Atwater, and we just can't thank them enough. So with that, we'd like to give you a couple little certificates. First one we're going to give to Dr. Barbara Williamson for 31 years of owning and operating a successful counseling business in the city of Atwater and her many contributions to the city of Atwater. And on behalf of the council, thank you. Job well done. And the next one is to Dr. James Williamson for his 31 years of owning and operating a successful counseling business in the city of Atwater and his many contributions to the city and the surrounding area. Thank you. And when I was at I love gift shops, okay? And when they're connected with the hospital, they really have neat things. So when I saw these two gifts, I said, I know exactly who I'm going to give them to. They are keychains that are made from different types of leaves. So there's oak and different kinds. So I'd like to present one to you and one to you. So a little bit of my thank you for all that you've done, and thank you very, very much. Would you like to say something?
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work in this community and to provide services to the students and the young people and people of all ages that I got a chance to work with in my counseling practice. And I look forward to being able to continue to be involved in the different activities that we're involved with at this time.
The good news is the urban forestry budget was approved. It's the single largest funding allocated to urban forestry in the history of the state. And Tree Partners will go get a piece of that. I believe there's lots of hope in urban forestry, and thanks to Patrick and Nick, with a very limited crew and very limited resources, all you have to do is look at the parks, and they're pretty well maintained, and they are a source of pride to the community. We'll stay involved, not going anywhere. I'm only 3 miles out of town, so I'll have more time to pester those that don't want me to pester them.
Give them another round of applause, and thank you very, very much. Notice to the public. At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. Please state your name and address for the record. Action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. If you wish to comment on an item that's on the agenda, please wait for the item to be read for consideration. Please limit your comments to a minimum of 3 minutes. And if you wish to comment on an item that is on the agenda, then just stand up behind where Mr. Price is, and so then I know that you wish to comment. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jim Price, 3467 Village Woods. Wanted to let the public know of a summit or seminar, however you want to phrase it, that'll be conducted tomorrow evening with the Coalition of Energy Users. And this is a group of people, an organization that watches what goes on with legislation in Sacramento and what have you to try to keep the pricing of our gasoline and diesel fuels, our energy under control. And tomorrow evening in Manteca, they're going to have a summit that is going to be on the myths and all the truths that'll come out for fracking. And the good part about this is if anybody from the public wishes to attend, there is a bus that will be at the Memorial Hall at 5th and Broadway. It's a free bus ride up to the event. It'll leave at 4:45 tomorrow afternoon from the big parking lot right outside Memorial Hall. So anybody that wishes to go, be there early. Don't know how many seats will be available at that point, but anybody who wants to go and listen to some very good speakers for a couple hours up in Manteca about fracking, here's your chance to do it, sponsored by the Coalition of Energy Users. On another matter, Madam Mayor and ladies and gentlemen, this past Saturday I had actually the honor of being one of the people that received the final flight for Specialist Terry Hearn. It was a very moving thing for me. I've seen these things in the past, and you know, with the honor guard and everyone out, it was a very, very moving experience. And as the wishes of the family, they wanted complete privacy and only people that were actually involved with the aircraft and what have you, which is how I got involved. I just want to say that you know, we can all be proud that that final flight took him home to the final destination right here in the heart of Atwater. And God bless Terry for his service to his country and to his family. I know this has been a very, very rough time for him, and we are honored to have had him as a city son. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Eric Lee, 1199 Atwater Boulevard. Seems almost difficult to come up here after what Jim just talked about, because I know that that had to be very emotional for him. I've had the opportunity to do the same thing, and I know what that was like. What I'd like to bring you tonight is an idea that has been discussed before, and I think should be discussed again. That is the combining of the three commissions, that would be Planning, Traffic, Parks, and Recreation, into one super commission. I think the city would realize a savings in doing that. Go from multiple meetings, 15 commissioners, 3 recording secretaries, and the recording of separate sets of minutes and a lot of duplication. You could eliminate a lot of that by going to one super commission. The super commission would be made up of 7 members. That would include the chairman. All members would be working together, all at the same time on projects and or issues that come before them. Each would have a thorough understanding of what all 3 departments are doing and how to immediately address any issue or issues that might come up. I feel this format would better serve the public, better serve the city, and result in a more productive use of time by the commission. Commissioners could be chosen in various ways. We have 3 commissions right now comprised of 5 individuals. You could take 2 off of each commission and then 1 at large as chairman. It could be done by council, it could be done by city administrator. But I think it's something that we really need to consider. I've had the opportunity to sit in on both traffic and planning, and I'm a member of the Parks and Rec. And I see a lot of gaps in there that are created because a lot of times the information is not shared between commissions. And I believe the importance of the commission, and I really think a super commission is something whose time has come to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy Bowling, 137 Judy Drive, Atwater. Madam Mayor, City Council, members. Kind of petty after the other two, but the last City Council meeting, it was talked about for the 4th of July, and the City Council agreed to give $350. I'm ashamed. I really am. I mean, the citizens of Atwater have tried really hard to back and support the things that we've asked. And it just seems like that it's such a large thing for this city that we could do a little bit better than $350 out of City Council. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Background information has been provided on all matters listed under the consent calendar. These items are considered to be routine. All items under the consent calendar are normally approved by one motion. If discussion is requested on any item, that item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. We are going to pull item number 5 for separate action. Councilpersons, is there any other items that you wish to pull? Yeah, Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Yes, I'd like to pull item number 8, please.
Item number 8. Okay. Is there any other councilpersons who wish to pull an item for separate action?
Yes, item number 6.
Item number 6. Any other items that you'd like to pull for separate action? Seeing none-
Actually, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but that's 7.
I'm sorry, what?
Also 7.
Oh, 7? Okay, right now we have item number 5 being pulled. We have item number 6 being pulled. We have item number 7 being pulled and item number 8 being pulled. So the remainder of the, I'll entertain a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar, which would be item number 1, 2, 3, 4, that's it, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bergman. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
Yes.
Full.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll start off with item number 5, and that is the United States Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. City Manager Petro.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, as we've done in the past, the COPS grant has opened up again for this year. Last year, we wrote a COPS grant for $125,000 a year. We were accepted for one officer for that dollar amount. In your staff report, it advised that we're again going to apply for the COPS grant with your authorization to obtain another funding. It says for one officer. I have to correct. We just learned a few days ago that they're authorizing the funding for 2 officers. So it would be 2 officers at $125,000 apiece for a total of $750,000 over the 3-year period. I'm requesting that you adopt Resolution 2766-14, authorizing submittal of the grant application to United States Department of Justice.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the City Manager? Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Just wanted to thank our city manager, chief of police, and the grant writers for doing such a wonderful job and getting Atwater such a wonderful opportunity of having 2 additional police officers out on our streets. So thank you and all the other members for such good work.
Thank you. And one other thing I forgot to mention, we are also, as we have last year, going to try to get an order to release. It's a 25% match, but last year we were able to get that waived, and we're going to try to do that again for this current document, so it won't cost the city any matching funds at all if we get a waiver.
Okay. Any other questions of the city manager? I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 5.
So moved.
Moved by Jeff Rivero, seconded by Mr. Bergman.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions? Call for the question.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
Yes.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Fall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 6, waiving of the second reading and adopting. Waiving in the second reading and adopting ordinance number CS 954, temporarily amending the ordinance and extending the temporary fee reduction of the public facilities and improvement fees. Mr. Joe Rivero, Councilman Joe Rivero, what was your concerns about this item?
Well, as the council will normally vote yes to approve it, it makes it look like you're in support of it. I'm not in support of this, so I asked to pull it, so I may vote no.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? I'll entertain a motion to approve the item number 6.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bergman,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by Mr. Jeff Rivero. Any further discussion? Call Councilman Joe Rivero.
Yes, for those that weren't listening at the meeting where this came up, I just felt that this is an extension of another extension of another extension of another extension. And so why don't you just pass an ordinance that says that these developers can take these huge cuts forever, because that seems to be what's happening, making it look like, well, we're only doing it 6 months. We're only going to do it for 6 months, where it's gone from 6 months to a year. It's going to go to a year and a half, 2 years. As being one of the cities with the lowest rates in the state and lost money over the years during the building boom, because we had some of the lowest rates in the state, all total. I just think that this is, now some might say, well, it's going to promote growth. Well, we've had the county out there, I've seen them, where they haven't given some of the developers these same fees, and I believe some of the counties were a little bit higher than ours, and yet they were having building growth. So I don't see just keep opening up. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to do well with businesses. Is the city saying, okay, let's give you 1/3 cut or 1/2 cut to come in and Atwater and do it? We're not doing it for everybody. It's just the developers, and it just so happens too that of the 2 largest contributors to council members in the city of Atwater, developers are the 2nd largest that I did my research on it. I just think during these times, we already have some of the lowest. We don't need to go lower anymore. So that's my reason.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Bergman, and we have a second by Mr. Jeff Rivero. Call for the question.
Bergman,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
No.
Fall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item number 7, waiving the second reading and adopting ordinance number 955, establishing limits for the mayor and members of the city council. Mr. Joe Rivero, what are your concerns?
Well, as I stated before, anyone else that did not understand my concerns with this is, my understanding is that there was a political agenda behind this. And it just so happens that it doesn't affect any of the council members up here anyway, because it wouldn't affect us. There's a law that was passed, I think our city attorney explained that last time, to prevent individuals from doing just what maybe was the attempt right here, to try to eliminate somebody they didn't like. Well, and here's another point, is you were just talking about council members. We have a city treasurer that's over 40 years. He's been a treasurer, one of the longest in the state. Every time he goes to the poll, there's a term limit possibility. And he's survived the term limits, but people have appreciated what he's done. So to have somebody else come in and say, well, there's a reason we got to eliminate you. No, I don't believe in that. And this isn't talk about treasurer or city clerk. This is just about council. And so I think that there is, it's questionable. And so it's not really a philosophical belief that this is based on. It was more of a political agenda.
Sir, I would not use the term political agenda. That is a summation on your part. You can
Okay.
speak against it, but let's not add to the...
Well, my belief, okay. And then Lyndon B. Johnson stated, "No law we now have in the books can ensure the right to vote when local officials are determined to deny it." And I think that this is...
Let's stay with
Oh,
the...
this is what I'm trying to
You've
say.
already commented on Lyndon B. Johnson before, so
And
let us
I'm
stay
gonna
with,
repeat-
right with
Madam
the,
Mayor,
stay on the tech. So thank you
I
very
understand
much.
you're not for it, but, and there's a two process for people to understand. There's one process in which the individuals that want this could go out and get the signatures. That is one of the processes. Is that not right, City Attorney?
Yes.
And the other process is to get enough members on the council to go ahead and okay it, and then that costs the taxpayers. Every single one of us have to pay for that. Okay? So rather than allow the group that really wants this to go out and work, we're telling, what we're going to do is just say, no, taxpayers, we're going to pay for it. So I don't think it's right to be sticking this on the taxpayers when the individuals that really want this could go out and get that.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Mr. Jeff Rivero?
I, too, am opposed to this for two reasons. One, it adds restrictions to the voters. The voters, if they really like what job you're doing, they should be able to have that right to go out and vote for you. Second of all, I don't know why we're doing this issue in the first place when all I can think of is one other council member who ever served more time than that, and I believe it was Greg Olzak. That's as far back as I could think of. But my point is why are we coming up with this when it's only happened once in the city of Atwater? It's not an abuse, it hasn't happened, and second of all, it's restricting the citizens from being able to put somebody in that they feel is doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the council, Mr. Mooneyham or Mr. Bergman, would like to comment on this? Call for the question.
Jeff Rivero,
No.
Joe Rivero,
No?
Bergman,
Yes.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Fall,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we have item number 8, and that is declaring an intent to collect levies for various assessment districts. Is that, which, you pulled that, thank you.
I was going to ask for a verbal report so that way citizens could hear exactly how many districts were going up and which ones. I know in the past that there was a district being charged for a bicycle path that wasn't even there. So just for their sanity and myself, if you wouldn't mind doing it in a public forum, let people know what districts are going to be increased.
You can't.
Well, I think that that's a good segue for tonight because obviously we have 48 different districts and it's probably hard to go through every single one of them. But I think in your packet you have a summary that shows that schedule. And the other point we want to make abundantly clear is that tonight's basically the setting of the process to allow the public to come in and inspect these, and it'll be at the city clerk's office available for review. But I'll see if I can find the sheet that shows the proposed changes up or down depending on the specific district.
I was just asking for the increases.
I think we cannot increase, the way I understand it, and pardon me for interrupting, but we cannot increase unless we have the voting of the people within the district. So there's some districts that we cannot increase until we go out and do a special 218.
Yes, you're correct, Mayor. Some you cannot change because they're set and there was no ability to increase them. Other ones, they do allow for that automatically or with a change like tonight. And so I'm looking on page 24 and 23, which are the summaries of the districts, and I'm hoping to find that for you. And pardon me, I'm looking initially at the district for the lighting and drainage districts.
But
Okay, I think I have the right sheet.
can we...
It's 25.
25? But won't we have a complete report after the engineer goes out and does the study and everything, a complete report back
This is
regarding this matter?
This is the engineer's report, Mayor.
Oh, this is the engineering
It's prepared,
report.
ready for your review.
Oh.
And I believe it's on here, but I think I may be missing a sheet. I might like to take a look at one of your packets, if you wouldn't mind, but thankfully, and I apologize, we have somebody here for Wildan who's prepared these for you, and they're going to be better prepared than I am to answer these questions.
I believe there's 12 districts that are increased. One of them is $290.
Page 17 for the
Yeah, go ahead.
landscape.
Introduce yourself if you would.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members and staff. My name is Susana Medina. I'm here representing Wildan Financial Services. We prepared 2 reports that are for your approval today, and this council meeting is setting the public hearing date and preliminarily approving the reports or recommending any changes. To answer Councilmember Jeff Rivero's question, the changes that are allowed are only, the increases that are allowed are only on those districts that allow an increase as far as CPI or 4%. But there has not been an increase greater than those amounts for any of the districts. Otherwise, as the mayor stated, we would require a Prop 218 balloting.
On the Schaefer Lakes East, number 3, it increased $290. So
It's an increase based on the prior year's rates, which are still under the maximum allowed rates, and it's basically because of the increase in the cost of maintaining the districts.
Do we have any other questions of Ms. Medina? Now, we will be able to ask questions again when we do the public hearing, right?
Correct.
Then, so basically, our charge tonight is to establish the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, do we have any other questions, or I'll entertain a motion to?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask on, especially for Melrose Ranch number 2 and Schaefer Lakes East number 3, will they be mailed information to let them know that it's going up $290 and the other Mellow Ranch is going up $59.80? Because that's a significant bounce. So it would be nice for these people to know it prior to the meeting that we're going to vote on it, so that way they can be informed.
Yes, page 17 of the landscape maintenance district shows the increases, and page 25 of the lighting and drainage maintenance district shows the increases, which are still under the maximum rates allowed.
My question is will these specific people be notified? Because almost $300 and close to $60 is quite a big jump. There's another district at 6172, and that would be Applegate Ranch. So is there any way of letting these people know that it's going to be such a significant bounce?
City manager?
Should be yes, right?
We should be able to.
Asking if there's a process to notify.
Do we
them.
send?
Oh.
Separate from this.
There is no process that notifies property owners. The notification process that would be required if we're increasing the rates over the maximum, and that would be a Prop 218 notice.
Is there any way of putting this in the utility bill so people know? I would just like to give people a heads up, because those are quite large bounces, and I'd like people to have a heads up.
These assessments are part of the property tax bill, but as an administrative item, we can recommend staff send letters out to those property owners.
I think the most inexpensive would be the utility bill. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
To show those changes.
So I think we need to, so the public hearing for this has been set for July 14th. That is when we'll have the public hearing on this, and that is the time in which people who are interested in the maintenance districts and have questions on the maintenance districts, that would be the time to come. And I hope you would come back so that you can answer questions on the maintenance districts. There is nothing more confusing than the maintenance districts and how to interpret them and how to determine who gets the raises and why certain maintenance districts cost us a lot of money to do, but we don't have the money, because of the fact we can't increase the rate. So it's a very difficult thing to do. So if you could come again on the 14th, we would really appreciate that.
Mr. Jim McGuire of Wildan Financial Services will be here.
Okay, is he knowledgeable, I hope?
Yes, he is.
Good, because we've had people who aren't knowledgeable, and so I just want to make sure that the person who comes understands how this works, because it's not an easy thing to understand.
Yeah, he's been doing it for over 20 years, so he's very knowledgeable. And is your direction for staff to send out letters to the property owners whose rates have increased?
Is that what we wish to? Utility newsletter?
Oh,
Okay,
put it on the utility newsletter.
And we'll post it on the website also. Thank you. And we appreciate you coming and answering questions, because I didn't realize that we were going to be doing this much discussion on this item. So thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we entertain a motion then to approve this item, or?
Make a motion to approve the item.
Okay, moved by Mr. Jeff Rivero to approve the item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham. Any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, roll call. My apologies.
Okay. Mooneyham?
Yes.
Bergman?
Yes.
Joe Rivero?
Yes.
Jeff Rivero?
Yes.
Fall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 9, Treasurer's Report for the month of May 2014. City Treasurer Heller.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Before you is the Treasury Report for May 31st.
Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Just wanted to ask Mr. Heller where we're at on the water treatment bonds, and
Last November.
Online to make our payment to this point.
We have a Melrose bill due in July, $1.6 million.
I was asking on the water treatment plant, not the Melrose, but thanks on the Melrose too.
This is Melrose. Which one you want?
The water treatment plant?
It's paid.
And everything's online?
Everything's okay.
And the Melrose payment will mean that the, up to this point, it will be finished on the...
I don't know, you know that.
Well, I'm just asking money-wise, monetarily, in the fund, we're good?
We're good.
And the payment should stay online to finish in August of 2015?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Heller? And if there is no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham.
I'll second the motion.
What?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Appreciate that, sir. Any further questions? Call for the question.
Joe Rivero?
Yes.
Mooneyham?
Yes.
Jeff Rivero?
Yes.
Bergman?
Yes.
Fall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Appreciate it. Item number 10, adopting the 2014-15 fiscal year budget, approving the fund expenditures and fund transfers and establishing appropriation limits and approving the salary schedule A14 effective July 1, 2014. City Manager Petro and Financial Consultant Zanoni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, I am pleased to transmit to you the City of Atwater the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2014-2015. This document provides a comprehensive overview of the city's activities and programs for the 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2014. This document also includes the city's fiscal year 14-15 capital improvement programs. The proposed budget includes programs and activities in support of the City of Atwater's mission statement, which is to provide innovative, sustained, high-quality public services to the community through each one of the maximum capabilities. The proposed general fund budget for the fiscal year is, I'm going to underline is, barely balanced, with a projected revenues expenditures totaling $11.2 million. In spite of submitting a balanced budget, it is extremely important that we begin to identify possible long-term cost-saving measures, which myself and Mr. Zanoni are working on now.
Okay, be sure we have one of these because this will help you in following along with us. So I think there should be some extra ones in the back, and it's very.
Can I finish?
Yes. Oh, I apologize.
That's okay. Jump right in here. Fiscal year 2014-15 will be the year for planning and addressing the city's financial challenges. It's going to be an extremely challenging year this year. In spite of our major accomplishments for presenting a balanced budget for 2 years in a row, we must aggressively identify measures which might be taken to eliminate the negative fund balance and return the city's general fund to a financially stable position. During the coming year, I will work closely with the City Council to discuss the possible difficult but necessary actions to begin to reduce the deficit in the general fund. In closing, I would like to express my appreciation to my entire staff who worked endless hours in putting this together. A big thank you to Mr. Bill Zanoni, who is probably, without a doubt, one of the best financial advisors I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. But last but not least, our employees of the City of Atwater, who took a significant financial hit to make this effort in balancing this budget. I would also like to thank the City Council for providing leadership and direction as we move forward through these extremely challenging times. Mr. Zanoni.
I just want to thank our city manager, and I do apologize for interrupting his speech. Yes, but anyway, we can't. Thank you so much, Mr. Zanoni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item presented before you this evening is the budget for fiscal year 2014-15. The annual appropriations limit, which is a calculation that must be done every year to make sure that the city is not exceeding the allowable amount of funds that can be spent, and the city is well under that limit, and the annual salary schedule. The budget was reviewed by the Administrative and Finance Committee meeting this afternoon. Council also held a budget workshop at 4:30 this afternoon, and we went through the budget in a fair amount of detail. So I'll go through this presentation quickly. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. What we're going to just touch on real quickly as an overview of the budget, the general fund, some of the other city funds, staffing, and the capital improvement program. The total city budget for fiscal year 14 is $40.4 million. There are 24 funds, the city budgets, that make up that $40 million. It includes labor, debt service, internal service funds, capital projects, utilities for the city, and other operating costs. For the general fund, the history of the general fund over the last 6 or 7 years has been a significant decline in revenues. City Council took action to reduce expenditures in line with the reduction in revenues. Unfortunately, the situation that the city is faced with is that the revenues declined quicker than the city was able to reduce expenditures. So for the general fund, As per your last audited financial statements from last June, general fund ended last fiscal year with a negative fund balance of $4.2 million, and that's the green line. The goal would be to have our fund balance, and as per your reserve policy, general fund reserves at about 15% of the budget. So ideally, our reserves should be about $1.7 million right now, and we're looking at a negative 4.2. So that is a significant challenge that the city is going to be facing over the next couple of years. For fiscal year 14-15, whoops, we have a balanced budget in the general fund. We've projected revenues of $11.2 million and expenditures of $11.2 million. The budget's balanced, but it's balanced with a surplus of about $2,000. So it's not a big cushion with a budget that size. In addition to the general fund, the city has enterprise funds. These are funds that stand on their own and act as if they were individual businesses. One of them is the Water Enterprise Fund. Because of the rate increase, or series of rate increases that the council approved last year, the Water Enterprise Fund is now supporting itself. That was the case this year for the first time in many years, and for next year we're projecting revenue of $3.5 million and expenditures of $3.4 million with an operating surplus of about $100,000. That fund right now does have a negative balance, which will have to be repaid over time as funds accumulate. The Sewer Enterprise Fund is balanced with revenues slightly exceeding expenditures. And the Sanitation Fund, the Garbage Fund, is a fund, again, that was in a serious deficit position. As of June of last year, it had a $4.3 million negative fund balance. This year, that fund was self-supporting as a result of the rate increases that you approved. And for next fiscal year, we're projecting revenues of $3.5 million to cover expenditures of $2.8 million, and that difference will go towards beginning to reduce that deficit in that fund. The city also has a number of internal service funds. These are funds that provide services to other city departments or other city funds, and so money is moved from the other city funds to these internal services funds. Whoops. And based on the discussion at the council meeting earlier this evening, one adjustment that the city council recommended was to the equipment fund, that we reduce the budget in professional services and operating expenses by $125,000, I believe. So that budget for the equipment fund, rather than $667,000, will be $541,831. One other significant fund that the city is budgeting for is the Measure H fund. For next fiscal year, we are proposing a budget of the Measure H fund of $1.3 million. That will fund, in this fund, the cost of the code enforcement officer, police, reserve, program, and dispatch. It'll provide partial funding for a police officer position. The rest of that position is funded from the COPS grant. About $700,000, or actually $700,000 of Measure H funds will go into the general fund police department budget to cover the cost of a partial restoration of salaries and benefits for sworn police officers that was implemented this year. And about $130,000, $135,000, I believe, is budgeted for the lease payments on 5 police vehicles that were leased this fiscal year, and an aerial ladder truck, which the council just authorized leasing, and we're in the process right now of working with the lease company to get those documents in order. In addition to the Measure H fund, there's other funds that the city budgets. One of them is general fund capital. We have $534,000 budgeted next year. Most of that is grant funds that will fund sidewalk improvements, traffic signals, and bike paths throughout the city. The police grant fund includes the COPS grant and the several Bureau of Justice grants. One item in here that is of significance is the Community Facility District 190. This $1.8 million is debt service payment. This is the last year that this will be levied. These bonds will be paid off, and the taxpayers for next year, this is the last time that they will see an assessment on their tax bill. The last item on this other fund list is a new fund that's being set up for the Ferrari Ranch project, where we'll be able to track revenues coming into the city and costs associated with that new development. Citywide staffing, the budget as proposed includes staffing for 78 positions. This is a 42% reduction. As the city manager said, the city has gone through significant cost-saving measures over the last several years. This is by far the most drastic. We've gone from 134 to 78 positions over the last 6 years. This is just a listing of the elimination or not budgeting several vacant positions and several increases, but the net impact from this fiscal year to next fiscal year is a reduction of 1.5 positions budgeted in the city. Capital improvement program for next fiscal year totals $2.3 million. That $2.3 million will fund traffic and street improvements throughout the city, park and playground improvements, some maintenance district work, $1 million out of the Water Capital Fund for water system improvements, and about $500,000 for sewer system improvements, and those projects are detailed on page 87 and 88 of the proposed budget. One of the items that we discussed, and I won't go into it again right now, but we did at the earlier budget workshop talk about the 5-year forecast for the general fund. General fund looking out 5 years is going to be facing some challenges. We've got revenues that'll be fairly flat for the next several years, and the city general fund will be dealing with some significant increases in expenditures, one of the largest being increases in CalPERS retirement costs. That's going to create a situation where the general fund will most likely be out of balance again. So the challenges that will have to be addressed during this coming fiscal year will be to be fairly aggressive in identifying additional general fund cost-saving measures to deal with CalPERS rate increases and ensure the long-term fiscal sustainability of the city. Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Joe Rivera, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. When you're talking about CalPERS increases, too, from the information I've seen, it's from some of our contracts, too, in CalPERS. So we're being just kind of general here, but we're talking about certain contracts, too, like maybe the CAL FIRE contract increasing tremendously. So, I'd like to hear and the public know what the numbers are, what they might be increasing over time, rather than just patty cake around stuff. And, I like more information to go out to the public.
Okay. We are anticipating in 15-16, for example, for CalPERS, for the city's contribution for its employees, an increase of about 6%. That's a significant increase, and increases it there every year after that.
Okay. And like I said, there are contracts that are out there too, whether it's wastewater or fire, and the increases that it's going to cost.
And that is not just an increase for the city of Atwater. That PERS is increasing rates for every public agency in the state of California.
But the total cost is going to be to the city.
Okay. Correct. Right. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The other issue that the city will have to address will be fund deficits and repayment of interfund loans, and we will be bringing back to you at your next meeting several resolutions to document the interfund loans.
Excuse me again, Councilman
plans.
Joe Rivera.
Yeah, I had a question too on the interfund loans back on page 7. Could you go back to page 7?
Slide 7?
Slide 7.
probably an easier way to get there, but.
What I bring up is, well, because you're talking about the interfund loans, which were taking place, and we have the diagram there. You can see where things started to go south. And actually, I know for a fact that one of those bumps up was actually shifting of money to make the general fund look better. Now, those interfund loans that were being done, and I'm not sure what the management did at the time, but were those included in the fund balance for the general fund? So when they took the funds from the other, let's say water, and put it in the general fund, did that show up here to make it look even better than what it was?
No.
No, so the interfund loans weren't making it. Okay, because I do know that the bump increase was from selling a piece
No, because the interfund loans weren't booked, the funds just went, for example, the general fund just went negative, and that's what we're doing now, is we're going to be documenting those interfund loans.
All right, thank you.
Now, get back to, sorry.
Not your fault.
There we go.
Thank you.
So the recommended action is to conduct a public hearing, following up on the budget workshop that we just had, and then adopt the fiscal year 2014-15 budget.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Zanoni before we open up the public hearing? Seeing none, we will now open up the public hearing. Now is the time for the public to come forward and speak in regards to the proposed 2014-15 budget. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jim Price, 3467 Village Woods. The reserve balance started going south in the latter part of 09-10 budgetary time frame and has never come above the green since. CalPERS increase. My question on CalPERS is, what is the contribution that the employees truly are putting in? Are they holding to their percentages? I would also like to say that I'm dismayed that the council hasn't said anything to mitigate those costs or to try to address it. So here's my suggestion. All new hires that will come to the city of Atwater will be told it's a Roth IRA or a 401k and no more CalPERS. The revenue from businesses downtown. For those that watch the Sun Star here lately, Mio Pueblo is going to close 91 jobs. 91 taxpayers going to be out of work. There's a hot rumor we're flying around that Kmart may be closing as well. And the spinoff from that will be anchor businesses that are all in that complex by Kmart. 14-15 projects declined, or projections declined by $800,000 and $700,000 plus for expenditure reduction to zero to a $100,000 thing. So the thing I'd like to know is, Council, what is your plan? Marketing and promotion is zero in this town. I haven't heard of anything. I haven't seen anything. Your website, which I brought before the council here, is a dismal failure. How much is spent for it? Whatever you're spending, you're losing money on it. Restoring the city to a 5-day work week is essential. People work 5 days a week. They don't work 4 days a week. Any prospective developer or anybody that wants to do business in this city, if they show up on a Friday, they're just flat out of luck. Assessment of the maintenance districts, as was just brought up. This is another area where it would be highly recommended that that be looked at as being a privatization type of a thing. Put out an RFP and get somebody to do that, dodge those CalPERS payments and everything else. There's a lot of these things, and one of the things I brought up in the
Just sum it
budgetary
up, Mr.
hearings
Price.
was is that the street lights and the signals at the signals at intersections be also privatized, so that we could save additional funding there. And I'm asking the council, be creative, don't be silent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward and speak? Seeing none, no further persons who wish to participate in the public hearing, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the dais. And we will, I'll ask that starting with Mr. Jeff Rivero, do you have any comments on the presentation of the budget for 2014-15?
Yes, I was going to thank Mr. Zazzoni and Chief Petro City Manager Petro, for putting in so much time, and the department heads and everybody putting everything together for us. It seems like one of the best budgets I've ever seen, so I appreciate your guys' hard work and effort into doing so, and I just wanted to tell everybody thank you. I appreciate your effort.
Thank you. Mr. Joe Rivero, do you have any comments on the proposed budget?
Yes, and may I also ask Mr. Zanoni a question, too? Mr. Price brought up a good point here on one of the issues. He talked about Mi Pueblo. It was in the paper. They may be closing, and they're a considerable source of the tax income. Now, you were talking about the Major H funds, and that was assuming that everything was going to stay the same or get better. And so the council on a 3-2 vote went ahead and put us in nearly another $1 million of debt of the Major 8 for the Major H funds, assuming that that other portion was going to be there. So, have you calculated out the loss of a business such as Mi Pueblo, or let's say a Kmart too, just to throw it in there, what the total cost would be, or how much indebtedness, because that is more indebtedness to the city over the next 10 years, rather than just taking it and paying off and bringing things up, like all the salaries back to where they were, and then helping some of the employees come back. So
we're not proposing in this budget any increase in salaries. And as far as revenue for sales tax, we are actually budgeting, it's a slight decrease in sales tax revenue next year. We get our the city contracts with Muni Services for sales tax projections, and they don't forecast businesses going out, but if there is an understanding that there's going to be a change in a business, they provide us that information. So we're going off their projections.
My question was that projected into it in Mi Pueblo?
I don't know about that particular business, but I know our sales tax budget for next year for sales tax this year was $2,027,000. The 14-15 budget for sales tax is $1,947,000, so it's down slightly.
Okay.
We're not projecting any increase right now in sales tax revenue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Councilman Bergman, do you have any questions in regards to the budget?
No, ma'am.
Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham?
I'd only like to echo Councilmember Jeff Rivero's comments to Mr. Zanoni and Mr. Petro regarding their fine work in dealing with the budget. It is an excellent document. Knowing that it is a living, breathing document, I look forward to revisiting it come mid-year budget review. As Councilmember Rivero alluded to, obviously there's some things that we can foresee, some that we can't. Sales tax projections may be lower, property taxes may come a little higher. So all you can do is go with what the data is presented in front of you at that given point in time. I am happy that this council was able to find almost $125,000 in the building maintenance fund that could add to our cushion. Even though it's not much, it is a little something. So I'm very pleased with the budget document in and of itself, and look forward to honing it throughout the year. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I will, the staff's recommendation is to Councilman Joe Rivero.
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to add one thing too, prior to our next budget, because I think I've mentioned it to you before, and I mentioned it to Mr. Wellman, I mentioned it to the other city manager, but I'd like to see a comprehensive study done for the 2 contracts that are costing us so much money and brought back to see if there's any realistic savings there, which I believe that there's at least $500,000, and that's to the general fund. And so it's never been done yet, but I'd like to see it at least by this, not this year, but at least by next year, because I think you're well aware too of the increase of costs that are taking place. And which the general fund is weak. The state recognizes that. They've sent people down to audit. We need to really take a realistic look to really save the money for the citizens. And so I'd like to see at least some comprehensive thing brought back to us for the next budget year.
City Manager Petro, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my understanding, Councilman Joe Rivero, that your former city manager brought you a comprehensive study last year. I am in the process of doing another one. You won't see it until February or March of next year, because it's very comprehensive and extensive. So.
Okay, thank you. And we were presented one thing that continued to change. And you're correct, there was something that was presented, but it continued to change all the time. I'd like to see something that's comprehensive and realistic and on both contracts, not just one.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Mayor. So the Veolia contract also, wastewater treatment plant, and the
potential savings in the general fund, yeah.
Okay.
Or savings overall. Wastewater.
Okay, we move. Okay, with that, we have gone through, and I'll entertain a motion that Councilman Jeff Rivero.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this year's budget that's presented to us.
Second.
Okay, moved by Jeff Rivero to adopt the budget of 2014-2015 fiscal year budget with the modifications that came to us from the budget workshop, and that's been seconded by Mr. Mooneyham. Is there any further discussion? Call for the question.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Fall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I just want to thank everyone, and thanks to the staff, and thanks to the city manager and everyone, because this has definitely been a partnership, and if it wasn't for our staff, and if it wasn't for the citizens of our community, we wouldn't be able to come forward and do the balanced budget. Okay, we're going to recess for a short recess. Okay, city attorney reports. Item number 11, discussion regarding local campaign limitations.
Yes, the issue in front of the council tonight is whether you want to direct staff to prepare an ordinance that would establish campaign contribution limits in some form. Staff has provided you with a list of cities that have some kind of ordinance, and we haven't spent an exhaustive amount of time looking at this. Wanted to more gauge the direction from the council on whether you were interested in hard campaign limits, whether you wanted to have certain dollar contributions that were subject to disclosure, or whether you wanted to have certain contribution amounts that would trigger recusal by a council member. In other words, if a council member received more than a certain dollar amount from any particular donor, and that donor had a project in front of the council member would have to recuse him or herself. So we're looking for direction in terms of what specifically the council wants from us, or if anything, on this item.
Councilman Joe Rivero.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's already a law about recusal, isn't there, for a certain amount, for limits the state set?
This is for matters that if one of the council members serves on LAFCO, there is a limit that would require recusal, but as it sits now, there's just a reporting requirement through the FPPC, and some cities make those subject to local disclosure as well. The city of Modesto, as I explained last time, has what they call a tin cup ordinance that requires recusal in the case of a certain dollar contribution amount. But ordinarily, state law just has requirements that these contributions be reported. So if the council wants to go beyond those requirements and have additional requirements, we're happy to look into that, but would want direction from a majority of the council as to which direction you want to go.
Okay, now's the time to ask questions of our city attorney in regards to this matter. So if you have questions or concerns about this item, now's the time to ask. So we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham. Do you have any concerns or your feelings on this matter?
No questions for staff, Mayor. I'm just having a hard time understand how we could hear some comments about voters' rights and not wanting to do anything to limit the voter or the voting public at large, and now we have an item that seeks to restrict campaign contributions. That just seems very hypocritical to me.
Okay. Okay, Councilman Bergman, what are your feelings on this matter? Do you have any questions of the city attorney? No, ma'am. Okay. Councilman Jeff Rivero?
Nope.
Okay, so now is the time, if we have no yes, sir?
I don't think you asked.
He already gave his thing. So he already gave his?
No, I didn't.
Do you want to have a second? Okay, Councilman Joe Rivero.
Okay,
before I open it up to the public.
No, you know, I think that this is something that's good. I was the one that brought it up. I view stuff now. When we're talking about this as to the city attorney, it doesn't limit the individual for putting money up in their own campaign. Is that correct?
Oh, no, absolutely.
So, yeah, person's right, because I respect the person who puts his money where his mouth is, and so I don't want to see restrictions on that. Now, as far as Mr. Mooneyham's statement about hypocritical, well, actually, this does not prevent, the way I want to see is it doesn't prevent any group from putting up money, but they would have to do it themselves and then identify which group, because let's say if it's the circus putting it on for a member, okay, and they would have to identify themselves that they're going to put more up, rather than a campaign contribution to the individual. Let's say if we have it at $500, if that circus gave him $10,000, unless you looked at the FPPC numbers, you wouldn't know that you have Bozo the Clown up there representing them. So what I'm saying is that they could still contribute, but they would have to do it on their own, and it would be identified. Whereas if it went into the person's, if it goes into the person's funding, he doesn't have to share. Hey, I got $8,000 from the developers, and I'm going to vote for every cut on the developers want. Or I got $10,000 from the fire, and I'm going to vote for all those issues. So That's what I'm saying is that this way it can be identified. They don't get the money to spend anyway and not let the people know where the money's coming from, because I think it's very important that people know what they stand for.
But, sir, we already have that. We have our 700. And so and when you get any contribution over $99.99, you have to list it on your sheet and who it comes from. So if it came from CAL FIRE Union, they have to list it. And just because you get money from a CAL FIRE Union doesn't mean that you're going to vote every time to support CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE has the right to support a candidate that they wish to support. And the same way it happens to be, the Supreme Court has already ruled that we cannot restrict. Is that correct, City Attorney? That you cannot restrict a person from contributing. They can contribute without even stating their names.
That was my point, that I was not
just a moment, sir.
That. Okay,
Let me recognize you. City Attorney.
Well, I don't know if it's actually before the body, because I'm not sure that's what it is intended, but I will say that the courts are taking an increasingly dim view of contribution limits in and of themselves, and certainly the Citizens United case, and now the case that just came down, does take a dim view of those hard and fast limits on campaign contributions. We have not done an exhaustive analysis of this issue and don't intend to unless the council gives us direction to do so. It's really, the issue is, does the council support the idea of bringing back an ordinance that would place any sort of a limit on campaign contributions, number one, or number two, in absence of that, some sort of reporting requirement that would then include a mandatory recusal of a council member who receives a certain dollar amount. And those are a variety of options. And from a staff standpoint, we don't want to proceed too far down the track without having firm direction from the council.
Mr. Joe Rivero, I interrupted you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I definitely agree with the recusal. If you've received so much from somebody, you shouldn't be voting on something once you've reached that limit. Because if the course that every council member and every state official has to take, saying even if it looks inappropriate or even if it looks questionable, you should recuse yourself according to the testing that we all had to take. So I think we definitely should have put a limit on that. Now, as far as Madam Mayor was talking about, it was going to deny somebody the rights. People still have the right to not give the candidate a whole bunch of money, but they can go out and buy an ad. And in doing so, they identify themselves in that ad. So you're not denying anybody. If somebody wants to put $1 million up, if a developer wants to put $1 million up, good, put it in an ad. But they're not allowed to give it to the candidate right where it's hidden, more or less. They know it's not hidden because they're still on forms, but the public doesn't get to see that in most cases.
I'm sorry, sir, but the 700 form is a public document.
Yes, it
and
is.
And if they wish to see it, they may see it. And that's why they have the political fair practice people to regulate that. But I know of cases where these people have received large amounts of money and they haven't been elected to anything. So it's just kind of, but, you know, I have some real feelings about this one. But anyway, do we have any further discussion before I open it up to the public? Is there anybody in the public who wishes to come forward and speak? What?
Oh, man. Jim Price, 3467 Village Woods. Come on up, Eric. You know, this is a lot of much about nothing, and you know, having gone through a couple of campaigns personally myself, you're right, Madam Mayor, you do have to document your funds and who they came from and all that good of stuff. And I agree with you, Craig, also. You know, this is, to me, a First Amendment thing, to be perfectly blunt. I think that, you know, restricting somebody by way of contributions is a First Amendment violation. And the city attorney can probably, you know, explain or say something more to this, but recently wasn't there a Supreme Court ruling that basically said you can contribute, and there's nothing to be said about that. So you know, yeah, we don't like it, and let's not be so naive as to not believe that when somebody contributes, and let's just say it's a developer or some retail outlet or whatever, that there isn't a quid pro quo somewhere down the line. Come on, guys, let's be realistic. Somewhere down the line, you know, I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine now and then. That's just politics. And is there a way for checks and balances on that? No. It's just the way you're going to have to depend on the integrity of the candidate and the person that is doing the contributing. You know, yeah, we may not like it, and I'm not singling out one particular group over another, but funds are going to go to campaigns. Some are going to be more than others, and that's the way it is in the world. Sorry. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Eric Lee, 1199 Atwater Boulevard. I think when Joe first brought this up, I said, why is he talking about a Kevin Costner movie? Then I realized it's not. It's about campaign financing. If anybody doesn't know, what Tin Cup stands for is Time Is Now, Clean Up Politics. Well, that's good in theory, but we all know that politics is going to be a lot harder to clean up than campaign financing is going to be doing it. You know, on the surface, this kind of legislation sounds compelling, but in reality, it's hard to believe that it would actually clean up anything since there are a number of ways around the law. So I have to ask, why now? I have a hard time believing that anything has changed in the previous 12 months that would require us to look at this type of campaign reform. Again, I have to ask, why now? I also believe that putting restrictions like these on members of a 5-person council places an undue hardship on their ability to do the business they were elected to do. It might work on a larger legislative body, which would include a 7-person council, but a smaller council could possibly run into problems breaking a tie vote. The Fair Campaign Practices Act already addresses the issue of where money donated to a campaign comes from. This is simply an attempt to keep any member who receives an amount over the required maximum from voting on an issue that might include or impact the donor. This could include developers, companies, corporations, or any entity or individual that wishes to donate above the agreed upon limit. Once again, I have to ask, why now? Lastly, who will monitor this ordinance and how much will it cost the city to perform that task? Any candidate who has received campaign donations over the prescribed limit will have to be placed on a watch list, and each and every issue that comes before the council will have to be researched to make sure that no one involved with the contractor project, like a subcontractor or any individual who may work for that contractor, be involved with that issue before the council. Again, I have to ask, why now? And the overriding thing on this is an assumption of how a person will vote. This is saying that if I donate a certain amount of money to an individual, that individual is going to vote the way I want them to vote. And that's not necessarily going to be true. So I have to ask, why now?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Mr. Mooneyham, do you have any further questions on this item?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Bergman, Councilman Bergman. Councilman Joe Rivero, do you have any further comments on this item?
I have a question to the city attorney. So there's many other cities around us, like I believe Merced has one, Modesto has one. I always hear about what other cities are doing, but on this issue, we don't seem to want to do anything about it. So I know you did limited research, but you found several in the valley right around us that do have this to help try to prevent, you know, some kind of manipulation, or at least more open and honest governance. And that's what this is about, because it does not limit an individual that I heard, well, it's going to limit their contributions. Well, it doesn't. It's just the campaign contributions to the candidate is what I'm talking about, the tin cup. If an organization wants to support a candidate, they can go out and buy it. But now it's not as hidden, because now it's right in the paper what group is supporting you. Okay? And whereas if it's given to the candidate, well, you don't know where he got those funds from, and it's all hidden. And this is making it more open and honest governance. And so, I mean, if you don't want it, well, that's fine. I just believe in open and honest governance for all, and it prevents the puppet master syndrome. So
thank you.
I'd like to see us do something where we regulate. And that was my comment. I'd like to see something that once you reach a limit, you shouldn't be voting on something. And like I said, it mentions it in the Code of Ethics that the council members, even if there's even if it looks like you're doing something that might be inappropriate, you should step down. And so maybe not everybody's done that in the past, but I think that we should be doing that in this city. So I think that there needs to be a limit, and we need to watch it. And oh heavens, the cost of somebody being watched for their campaign contributions. I think that that's going to protect the taxpayers from being taken advantage of. So I think that we need to set something similar. I mean, we're not larger than Merced. We're not larger than Modesto. And my other question is, how much are their limits, like the tin cup, for their candidates?
Theirs have varied over the years. I believe it's currently $1,000, but I'm not positive of that. Maybe $3,000. The amount has changed over the years, and you deal with the issue of direct and indirect contributions, and you've touched on that. So there's a lot of layers to that onion, but that, you know, every ordinance is different.
And the city of Merced, just since they're neighbors to us, what's theirs? Do you happen to know that?
I don't know it offhand.
You know that?
I believe it's 500 for an individual and 1,000 for a company.
500 for an individual, 1,000 for a company.
Right.
Okay, and
it says 2,000, but
2,000. Okay, 2,000.
2,000 for a company.
Okay, and I'd like something. We're looking at what other cities are doing, but we can't do that here. I think it kind of smells bad. So we need to be looking at what others are doing to try to make themselves look good and represent the public. As we should be. That's just my concern.
Thank
We
you.
need to take a look at the costs of somewhere between Merced's. I mean, we're smaller than Merced, somewhere around there. The only thing I don't agree with Merced's is that if you're a corporation given 2,000, why not an individual? I think we're all equal. So, like I said, and if the corporations or individuals want to buy their own ads, then they can, because they have to list it. It's not coming from the candidate. So.
Thank you. Mr. Jeff Rivero, do you have any further comments on this item?
I was just going to say, on this one, I'm torn in two different directions. One of them, I know that there's a town around the area when two people ran for mayor, there was hundreds of thousands of dollars thrown in. And I hate to see that happen to the city of Atwater, but I don't know of any election that's ever happened here in Atwater. So just like what I asked about the term limits, I'd only known one person that went over 12 years. I didn't want to spend the $7,000 or whatever, $10,000, whatever it was going to cost. On this one here, I don't think it's happened in the city of Atwater that many times. I don't think it's happened at all where someone's gone into what other towns have gone into. If I can ask Ms. Dealey-Rao, on your 700, that's public information. So if somebody wants to come in and ask what somebody's contributed, it's public access.
And the 460s too.
And without seeing a history of this, people who want to go in, they can find out. If there was a history of it, I could see going into like what other towns have, but I don't see a history here in the city of Atwater. And once again, teaching U.S. history, I hate to put restrictions on people, especially when it doesn't seem like there's that many issues going on to begin with, so.
I'm sorry, Judy, but comments have already been done on this. I apologize. Sorry.
you.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion, and I think at this time we should direct the city attorney. At this time, I do not feel that we need to go ahead and do any further exploration of this. I think we, as a council, we have more. I just think there's other items that the city attorney can spend his time in researching, and I think for the present time, my motion is that we give no further direction to the city council at this time. That's my motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
That's inappropriate. That's a legal motion.
Well, the motion, let me back up. I think probably the motion would be to table this item indefinitely.
Okay,
and then
that would be fine.
Because a motion to take no action is essentially
Okay.
a useless motion in my
Okay.
view, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. But
No, that just-
if we table it indefinitely, it's
Okay,
probably
table it
if
indefinitely.
that's the direction of the council.
Okay. Okay. We are going to, my motion is to table it indefinitely. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, Councilman Joe Rivero.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Tabling something indefinitely, does that preclude any other council or anyone else to bring it back up, or individuals that may vote yes?
It is, it's one of those motions that in Robert's rules doesn't really give you a lot of flexibility down the road. If someone who votes in favor of this motion to table it indefinitely decides they want to reconsider their position, that might be an opportunity to raise it again. But for a party on the other side of the motion to table that loses effectively, to bring it back for reconsideration over and over again would be improper. So my sense would be that if there is a change on the city council as a result of an election, if there is a change in circumstances, if somebody wants to change their position and vote yes, someone who voted yes now wants to vote no on that, it could come back in that format. But this is an expression of intent by the city council not to take action to adopt any sort of campaign contribution limits.
Do you have another comment, sir?
Yes. Something like this came up a long while back, and there was a question about what the time limit is that you can actually do. It's like so many months was what we were brought back from the attorney at that time. So could you check on that?
Well, let me tell you what generally is. When you're dealing with, and I don't want to get all technical with you, but when you're dealing with something that is quasi-adjudicatory, in other words, you're dealing with an application for something. Someone files an application for a permit, a use permit, a subdivision. You're acting then in an adjudicatory capacity. You're deciding whether to grant that entitlement or not. In those cases, reconsideration can only occur at the next scheduled council meeting, because you've got an applicant sitting out there with, a project that needs to be voted up or down. And so to have them hanging on forever that it might be reconsidered is inappropriate. Now, here you're dealing in what we call a quasi-legislative capacity. That's different. You're making law that affects the community as a whole. Nobody in particular is sitting out there with an application or a license that's at stake. And so my advice on this would be that unless you want to make a motion to move forward with an ordinance of some definition that you would describe, and that motion is voted down, we could come back next week and you could make a motion for a different ordinance that's slightly different, and we'd have the same problem. So the question is, it's capable of being repeated over and over again. So the best move is to, if the council, the majority of the council does not want to move forward with this sort of legislation, is to table it indefinitely, and then if someone wants to reintroduce it, we'll decide whether it's appropriate for reintroduction at that time. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to make it complicated.
Call for the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Jeff Rivera.
I was going to ask Tom Terpstra.
Yes.
If I vote yes on this motion and see that there's an issue, I can always come back, revisit it, and ask for it to be brought back?
Correct.
So if I vote to table it, but then it's this next election, like another town, there's $125,000 thrown in the race, then I can say, hey, there is an issue here, and then ask for it to be brought back.
Yeah, I think at that point we'd have to look at the situation, but I think at that point it would be appropriate to say, let's take a look at it, because we've now had an election cycle, we may have new council members. It's not to say that it can never be brought back. It's to say that there would need to be some change in circumstance in order for it to bring it back. And that might be one of those, particularly if the vote is not a majority or a supermajority vote. In other words, if somebody changing their position might materially change the outcome of the whole issue. If it was 3-2 and now it's 2-3, that type of a thing. But I think we're going to have to assess whether there's enough inertia behind bringing it back at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call for the question.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
No.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Fall.
Yes.
Motion
Item
carries.
number 12, lease agreement with Casey Family for sublease location of solar facilities and corresponding amendments to the power purchase agreement. City Attorney Terpstra.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Your staff packet has the background recommendation and our analysis, both of the legal issues and the policy issues, as well as the fiscal impact. But essentially, the city staff, along with Councilmember Jeff Rivero and myself, have negotiated an amendment to the to the power purchase agreement, as well as a lease agreement with the Casey family that will allow for a solar installation on city property as well as the Casey property. We've assessed the fiscal impact of this. The city would be the Water Enterprise Fund would be responsible for lease fees to the Casey family of $10,000 per year, as well as a one-time payment of $25,000 at the conclusion of the first year. It is anticipated that these expenses would be offset in the form of reduced energy costs generated by the project. I don't personally have the expertise in terms of how the project operates or how the credits work or any of that, but I do know that Councilmember Rivero knows a lot more about this than I do in that regard, and I know Mr. Vincent from Conergy is here this evening as well and could answer any questions that the council has. It is placed in front of you with a resolution that is recommended for approval, and that would approve the lease agreement as well as any necessary amendments to the power purchase agreement and authorizing any other documents to be signed that need to be signed in order to move forward with this 20-year lease with a 10-year renewal option for the city. I can answer any questions you have about this. There is, as I said, a corresponding resolution in your packet, and staff's recommendation is for approval.
Okay. Any questions of the city attorney? And so you say we can pay, this can be all taken out of the water fund, so we don't have to take anything out of the general fund, sir?
It is my understanding that per staff's analysis, and I don't know if Mr. Zanoni is still here, but I know the analysis by staff is that the Water Enterprise Fund is responsible for the lease fees. This is because we are producing energy for the operation of Well 15, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's the nexus between the water fund and the expenses.
City Manager Petro?
Just to follow up a little bit on what the city attorney said, this is probably one of the worst energy producing wells that we have. It's old. It's a potential of saving close to $40,000 or $50,000 if we are allowed to lease this portion. So, David, Mr. Vincent, why don't you pop up here just in case the council. This is David Vincent. He's the project manager for Con Energy. If you remember, Con Energy was a contract that we signed last year to do solar for some of the city property. He'll be happy to answer any questions if he.
Any questions that we have of Mr. Vincent? And I see Mr. Boykin is in the back row also. Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Yeah, Mr. Vincent, it's about 3/4 of an acre that we'd be leasing.
I think it's just about an acre is what the final came to. That included the elevated structures that the Caseys are benefiting from as well.
With the panels that you put on that, what's the estimated savings?
So from the utility side is roughly about $50,000 before your expenses out on the lease.
Thank you.
Just for that expansion, not including all the rest of the project.
And what? I'm sorry. What would the production numbers be with the extension? In other words, if we went with the contract we have now with you, how much percentage-wise? I believe it was 20% that we'd be producing for that well, but with the extension, it reaches up to 50 or 60%.
Yeah, offset on the bill, I think, came to about 75% of the current utility bill, but I'd have to double check the numbers. But I know it was roughly around 3/4.
All right, thank you.
And do the Caseys that we are leasing the land from, do they also benefit from the solar that we're put in for the well?
So through the lease agreement, So basically, the energy that the system creates solely benefits the city. It's all tied in to power the well that's there. And then the city has the lease with the Casey's, so the Casey's will get income from leasing the property.
Okay, but they don't all benefit from the solar then? Just
Correct.
The solar just operates our wells?
That's just for the city's consumption, yes.
City's consumption. Any other questions of Mr. Vinson? Okay. Then I will open it up to, pardon me,
No,
Mayor
please
Pro Tem.
continue, please continue, go ahead.
Okay. Then I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public who has questions on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council and Councilman Mooneyham.
Question for the city manager. When was this initial agreement consummated?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, David, about August of last year?
July of 2013. Yeah, roughly a year ago, July.
July?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a few issues here. One, it's been a year and we haven't seen a thing happen with this. It's a relatively small project by my opinion. We should have seen something occur by now. When you go into a contract with a firm for a year and you don't see any forward progress, you start to think that maybe they sold you on something they couldn't deliver. And that's what it's starting to smell like right now. Second of all, entering into a 20-year lease agreement without having any documentation in front of us at all about savings. I heard a verbal comment there, but there's no way I'm going to support entering into a 20-year agreement without seeing some documented savings in front of us. I owe the voters more than that. Also, I don't think it would have got the votes necessary had we known that we were going to enter into a $10,000 a year lease agreement with an additional $25,000 up front. This looks really bad. I have zero faith in this right now. Thank you.
Okay, any comments on any city Councilman Bergman, followed by Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, I agree with Councilman Mooneyham, is we haven't seen any numbers. Is there any way we can get the numbers so we have something in front of us to really give us some substantiation to what we're voting on? That would make, I agree, it'd make me feel a little better if we had some numbers in front of us.
City manager, can you tell us what the reason, weren't we in the negotiations with this Casey, and wasn't it a problem in trying to get them to agree as to the reason why it took so long to finalize this?
We've only been in negotiations with the Caseys for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Mr. Mooneyham, or the Mayor Pro Tem, brought up the fact that we've had this contract since July and you've seen no movement in it. We've had several issues that we've had to deal with in regards to finances. It's hard to get finance when the city has a budget that's barely balanced, so we had some issues with obtaining financing through the solar company. We've got that all on track now, and we'd like to move forward as soon as possible.
So basically, there were extenuating reasons as to why this contract was not been able to be initiated and followed through in the manner that we wanted to, an expedient manner. Is that correct?
That's correct. Dave, you can get up and state any other reasons besides the financing. That was the biggest portion of that, right?
I think, can you come up and talk to us a little bit more, because you're going to have to convince some young people on this council that it's the reasons why it took us a year to get this thing presented to us.
Yeah, and no smoke and mirrors here. I mean, we've ran the numbers, we've had the numbers, we've supplied the numbers. What happened was with the city situation, it was extremely difficult to find a financier. We ran through over 20 different financiers, popular financiers that do a lot of projects, and it was extremely difficult to get one on board. It was about 3 months ago or so, we were able to entertain one that we've done several projects with. Took a deep dive into the city's credit, where you guys are moving to. There's actually been some improvements on the city side, which was very key in getting the, getting the approval. So once that investor signed on, they did all their due diligence, they did that side, and the part about the Casey's came out to say, hey, here's an opportunity where the city could, save an additional $50,000 in just their, utility bills by extending this portion of it. I first met with the Casey's, it was back in February. So I've been working with them for about 4 months to get it to this point right here. I'm very happy to say we have a signed letter of intent with the investor. The investor is pushing to close this project on Friday. And if we get these 2 last documents that are in front of you today, that will be breaking ground in probably roughly about 60 to 90 days.
Okay, Jeff Rivero, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, and then followed by Mr. Berkman.
I was just going to touch base on, I know one of the reasons, and that's why at every council meeting when we have our audit and finance meetings, and when Mr. Heller's here, I'm always making sure to ask at the water treatment plant, because that's one of the biggest debt that the city has, and to let people know, because I know we were having problems with financing. So anytime the city needs to go out and try to use its credibility, it's paramount that everyone knows that our water treatment plant is, the bonds are online, and who wants to go ahead, and I'm guessing it's between 1 and 1.25 megawatt that will be going into the city with all the different spots.
Yeah, so the total system size is just less than 1.1 megawatts.
So you're asking somebody to put $6 million or somewhere around there, $6 million up front with a city that may not be able to sustain that. And if you're talking about bankruptcy, that would open it to go back into court where someone could say, you know what, we're not going to pay you that. And there's not too many financiers that are going to take that risk. But the chief has put together a couple budgets that were on time and online, and this is an opportunity for the city to save, what is it, $15 million. What we were presented way back in February or whatever when we voted on it, July, was $15 million over 30 years. So that's about $500,000 a year, and those are the numbers you gave us at that time. So anything in an addition would be even more than that $15 million. It's a PPA, so we don't put any money up front. You guys are supplying it. The extension, all that is leasing an acre of land from the Casey's so that we can increase it, so that way there's more savings on the electricity. And it was negotiated with the Casey's that they wouldn't take the money until the end of the year, so the city would get all savings from day one that you flip the switch to the very last day of that calendar year. So the city will be doing the savings, and then at the end it'll be a one-time 25, and then every year after that it's 10,000, correct?
I believe so. That'd be a customer.
So it's an automatic savings to the city. It's expanding it to over 1 megawatt. It's a savings of over, that was without the expansion, but it was $15 million in 30 years without the expansion, so that's got to go into the millions. And our financier is wanting to help out the city of Atwater, and we have got our balanced budget. So it took a while for all the dominoes to get lined up, but this is a perfect opportunity for the city to save a large amount of money on its electricity. And even if we didn't do the extension, we'd still be able to break ground in a couple months over the properties that we have, and we're still looking at the federal prison. But this was all voted back on, what was the?
July of 13.
July of 13. So there's been a little bit of a lag time because it takes a while to negotiate things, which you guys have done with the Casey's, and also to make sure that we got a financier. So as far as I'm concerned, everything's online.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Bergman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not saying I disagree with this. I think this is a good move for us. But, you know, I agree with the councilman. I would like to see some numbers in front of me. I mean, I bought a used car before, and the guy says, hey, trust me, and it was the biggest mistake I've made. So I'd like to see some substantiation. Now, would it put the project off too much if we asked to have some numbers come back at the next meeting and possibly take action on it then? We'd be talking 2 weeks, but at least we would have something in front of us, something we can hold on to and look at, rather than numbers that we really can't see.
So the investor gave us a deadline that they wanted all the paperwork done by this Friday. And what we can say is the numbers when you originally approved this project, The numbers that were given to you at that point in time, which was large enough for the council to move forward with, the system is growing, which is increasing your savings and increasing what you've already approved. So by growing the system, your savings isn't going to get worse, it's going to get better because you're offsetting a much larger portion of that particular, that well, which, as Chief mentioned, is one of your biggest power suckers in the entire city. So had we not taken on this extension on that system with the Casey's, we could have got the project going probably maybe a couple months ago or so. But this extension is a huge benefit to the city because you're increasing the total amount of savings. You know, just your year one savings alone, I know from the utility side, is about $50,000. You're paying out $35,000 in year one, so your net increase to your savings is $15,000 over year one. Then every year beyond that, you're paying a lease of $10,000 while continuing to save the $50,000 plus, based on, you know, a lot of factors, escalation and stuff. But for example, PG&E just raised rates in beginning of May. I think it was like around 7% or so. So energy rates aren't going anywhere. The investor's given us till Friday to try to have all the paperwork complete. They want to invest. They want to move forward.
Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the discussion that we've had thus far is completely irresponsible. To not have documents, to not have substantial data in front of you showing us the savings associated with a 20-year lease, to have that conversation is irresponsible of this council. The man that used to sit in the seat right to my right, Mr. Frago, used to always say, don't bring us stuff with extreme deadlines. Give us time to mull this over and do our diligence. Don't say it's got to be done by this Friday or it's off the table. And he had a point. There's in no way can I support this. I think it's extremely irresponsible of this council.
Okay. Councilman Joe Rivero.
Mayor, it's not out of the question to hold a special meeting to bring back the additional numbers, is it? If we were to hold a special meeting, could we do it on Thursday, or would it have to be Friday? What?
24
Only
hours.
24 hours, not 72. Okay, then we could have it even before Thursday to get the numbers together, because this council approved a much larger project. And I agree, you need to have the numbers presented to you. All the numbers were presented for the larger project. It would be nice to have this additional numbers before the council to convince all of us that this is a good move. I believe that it probably is a good move. We've supported it for the much larger project, but I agree with Mr. Mooneyham. It's the numbers that really matter. So is it okay to make a motion to have a special meeting by, you know, that's that council's discretion, whichever they can make, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, and have the numbers presented to us then.
I've got the numbers on my computer. I can plug it in.
Okay, what's the question?
I'm saying we could probably adjourn instead of do a special meeting for that item as well, to a date, if you have a date certain.
Well, we have to have this young man has
No,
to
I
have.
know, but I'm saying your choices are also an adjournment.
Well, I would think we would want to have the meeting on the 26th.
It's
This
one
would
of the
give him.
one of the options, if you guys like. I've got my computer
Okay.
sitting in the car. If you want to table this to the end of the meeting, I can plug in and show you the reports that were ran. I think it was like March or April timeframe or so. Show you the exact system. It'll show you the system size, shows you all the savings. It'll be before the latest utility increase, but we've got it all. It's been all printed out. It sounds like it just didn't make it into your packet.
It's at the council's discretion, obviously. You know, you can, we do have a couple of other agenda items if.
Yes, we do.
And you could delay it till then, you could delay it till Wednesday or Thursday. You could vote it up tonight, you could vote it down tonight. It's entirely within the council's discretion. So I think at this point, somebody needs to take a step forward in one direction or another.
Well, I think that Councilman Jeff Rivero.
There's two questions, and you kind of touched on one, but first of all, if we want to see the numbers, which makes sense, then let's postpone this and knock it down to to a couple numbers so that you have time to run us off the copies and bring in your computer. Second thing I was going to ask you is on the PG&E, the PG&E cost. Are we locked into a year ago, or what numbers are we locked into?
You're locked into your same starting rate. So even though PG&E rates went up, your starting rate doesn't actually start until the project reaches what we call COD, which basically turn the system on. So your rate is the same, even if we would have started last year, your rate actually starts at the same rate it would have been last year. So
that's a huge savings because it's gone up and increased. All right, thank you. Well, I'd like to make a motion to table this for a couple numbers or move it down.
Adjust the agenda,
Adjust
then put it at the end,
yes.
so he could run the numbers. So we'd have the numbers before the end of this meeting, so we could either vote one way or the other. This is a very important thing. We really want to make sure we get the right numbers, but if this is going to be saving us $50,000 in a well that is not economical as it is, but this has been kind of a concern I've had with the solar people and I think I mentioned this to my friend, the young man in the back who have already got a block, that we hadn't heard anybody from you people as far as what was happening to these different solar projects. And so I can understand with the finances and everything about it that, you were running into trouble, and I understand with our finances that how it would hurt your investors. But if you can show us the value of this, I think we need to move forward, because this is another area. If we can save $50,000, this council needs to save $50,000. That's for sure. So it's something. Yes, City Manager Petro.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In defense of Mr. Vincent, they have kept in contact with us on a monthly basis to keep us abreast of what was going on. As you recall, our credit rating was less than satisfactory until just recently, so it was a total nightmare for Con Energy to attempt to get any financing. Since our credit rating was boosted up a little bit more, that's when they jumped on it again. But they have been in contact with me on a monthly basis.
Thank you. Councilman Bergman.
Okay, since there shouldn't have been any discussion prior to a second, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bergman. I forgot all. Anyway, okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jeff Rivero, seconded by Mr. Bergman, to put this item at the end of the, where would be item number 17, and while this young Mr. Vincent goes and gets us the figures. Yes, Mr. Mooneyham.
Mayor, respectfully, I still think that falls within putting us on the spot. I know I can't do my due diligence in 30 minutes, respectfully. I think that's a disservice to the community to enter into a 20-year lease agreement based on half an hour or so of review. So I will be voting no on this matter.
Okay. Call for the question.
Bergman?
Yes.
Jeff Rivero?
Yes.
Mooneyham?
No.
Joe Rivero?
Yes.
Fall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the reports and presentations from staff. Agreement for the fire protection services fiscal year 2013-2014, fiscal year 2014-2015. Chief Fire Battalion Chief Pimentel.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, citizens of the City of Atwater. Today I bring before you is a discussion about the agreement with CAL FIRE in Atwater City. The Madera Mariposa Merced unit has been requested to provide an extension of the current contract of the Cooperative Fire Protection Agreement, not contract, between the City of Atwater and CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE has delivered a full-service, highly professional and trained fire protection and rescue service to the City of Atwater since October of 2008. An agreement with CAL FIRE is very beneficial to both fiscally and administratively. It's by providing a regional approach to protection that brings the outstanding level of service to the citizens inside and the adjacent areas of the city of Atwater. The City Council maintains local identity and control levels of service, budget, and funding for the fire protection of the city of Atwater provided by CAL FIRE. With that sense, that you majorly take over you have the city still, we just provide you the administrative portion of it and run your fire department for you within the city of Atwater. The city of Atwater retains ownership and control and responsibilities of replacement of all real property, assets, equipment. CAL FIRE does not own any of the equipment that belongs to the city of Atwater. So in that sense, the facilities such as the stations is all owned by the city, and all the equipment such as the fire engines, the cascade units, and equipment used on those fire trucks are all owned by the city. Administrative agreement is managed by the CAL FIRE unit chief as the Atwater City's fire chief. The fire chief is assisted by the division chief year-round, but the city only funds it for the 2 months of the year, or 2 months of the year. Currently, under the direction of the fire chief and the management of the division chief, the daily administrative and response duties are conducted by a 1 1/2 battalion chiefs. The duties include cooperation with the city of Atwater staff, routine administration, fire prevention, fire staff, supervision, fire prevention and planning, investigation, and commanding incidents within the city. Due to the workload of the current BCs and the level of service, the fire chief is requested to increase of 1/2 of BC to a total of 2 to assist in administrative, fire prevention, and planning duties within the city. We notice an increase within the city, and hopefully within the increase of businesses coming in and actually doing all these businesses fire inspections that we're doing, this individual will oversee all those and bring us up to date and keep us right on track as we have been doing for the past years to bring us to a status with our inspections and new businesses. The additional duties of the HAF-BC will include the responsibility coverage, response coverage, and they will perform fire marshal duties within the city. Level of service, operational positions, division coverage, we have 1 day a week. Battalion chief coverage, it will go from 4.5 days per week to 6 days a week. Communication operator coverage, we're at 5 days a week. We have 4 captains and 5 engineers in the city. Many of the services received in the city of Atwater for no cost through cooperative fire protection agreement with CAL FIRE include fire chief administration, battalion division chief coverage above the 20% pay, additional 1 day of battalion chief emergency response coverage, law enforcement and investigation services, safety officer, and training officers to maintain a complete mandatory training. The recommendations we have is to increase our medical recommendations for our personnel. This comes at no cost to the city, but in the agreement we have identified this. CAL FIRE is moving in a direction to have all of our personnel to a level of EMT. Emergency medical technician, level emergency medical response provides first aid, basic life support, airway management, administration of oxygen, bleeding control, and life support system stabilization until patients are transported to the nearby emergency care facility. So we're trying to up our level of education with our EMS. Typically, you can be a first responder and work in the firehouse, but you're talking a less than a 40-hour course, where the EMT course is 100 hours plus. And then we continually, after every 2 years, you have to keep certified in that those skills and be proficient with the training and education. So we're trying to up our level within the EMS side of it. Also with the recommendation, as I said before, is the battalion chief. This is a 0.5 battalion chief, a half a battalion chief. Currently, the city pays at 1.5. This will do the other half, where we'll give you a consistent 2 battalion chiefs in the city and give you a coverage of 6 days a week. The battalion chief will interact with the county agencies, law enforcement, building owners, occupants, witnesses, the fire department staff during investigations, code enforcement, and training. Assisting conforming to the California Fire Code, National Fire Protection Standards, Title 19 Code, California Code of Regulations, and the City of Atwater's Code and Ordinance, and the state's regulations within the scope of California State Fire Marshal Office. With this, I also have given you a packet to review of the agreement. And if at that point, with the Atwater City, we'd like to continue and extend our contract with the City of Atwater. And if I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Do we have any questions of Chief Pimentel? Mr. Jeff Rivero, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Joe Rivero?
No.
Mr. Councilman Bergman?
No.
Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham? Okay, this is the time, gentlemen, to ask questions before we open it up to the public. So no questions of the chief. Okay, so with that, we will open up. There are any questions of the public of this matter of the proposal that is being presented?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jim Price, 3467 Village Woods. Just want to make a quick comment that this is a good example of how contracted services can save the city a significant amount of money. I believe that the CAL FIRE response times and everything are in full compliance. Their service thus far has been above and beyond what we would expect. Having a city fire would be much more expensive, as was brought forward earlier this evening. 6% increase to a CalPERS would just not be cost effective. A side-by-side comparison of the rates, I'm sure, would bear that out. So I wholeheartedly endorse the CAL FIRE presence here in the city. They've done a great job from what I can see, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? Okay. We'll bring it back to the dais, and starting with Mr. Mooneyham. Any other further questions on this matter?
Just one for the city manager. Chief, can you tell me about the iterations you went through with CAL FIRE to arrive at this contract amount?
Yes.
Can you discuss the negotiation process at all? Shed any light on how you guys arrived at this? Sorry to catch you flat.
Myself and Chief Porkridge and Chief Pimentel had a lengthy discussion in regards to the use of an extra battalion chief. At this point in time, we're not going to hire that battalion chief. We're going to hold off until such time as we deem necessary. This is a good contract for the city. They're a superior organization. And I fully support this contract and both chiefs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bergman, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Councilman Jeff Rivero, any questions?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Pimentel for doing your due diligence and trying to get as many fire inspections done as possible. And also CAL FIRE. I appreciated the fact when the city of Atwater was going through some hard financial times that you guys worked with us and did your best, so thank you.
Councilman Joe Rivero. Okay. With that, the staff's recommendation is to motion to adopt joint authority resolution number 277114 and AFP for 2014, approving a cooperative program fire protection reimbursement agreement for the fiscal year 2013-14 and the fiscal year 2014-15. Is that correct, Did I say that correctly? That we're approving two fiscal years. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Jeff Rivero. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bergman. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivero. No. Mooneyham,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, budget amendment, Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham.
Just a quick comment for CAL FIRE personnel present here. Why don't you guys strive to keep on coming in under budget like you have past several years. We like that.
Thank you. Thank you again to CAL FIRE, and we really appreciate the support that you've given us, and we truly appreciate that. Okay, budget number 14, budget amendment and change orders for Bellevue Road Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. Mr. McBride.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Normally, we're here to talk to you about saving money on a project. We're here tonight because we had a unique situation where we had funding that wasn't committed in your Prop 1B allocation, and we were running into a deadline. As you know, we have a deadline to spend money by the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. And you had a approved project that we were underway with. That's the Prop 1B project for Bellevue Road pedestrian improvements. What we're asking your approval for tonight is to approve a budget amendment resolution which would allow us to capture the additional funds, or a majority of the additional funds that we're setting out there for Prop 1B. And we also provided for your background and information the various change orders that we included that go towards that funding that we're asking for your consideration to increase. Keep in mind, we only had till June 30th before we lose any funds that weren't committed. The project is on schedule to be completed. We have an issue with back orders for some of the crosswalk warning devices. We're knocking on wood that will be in by Tuesday or Wednesday and will be done by this week. If not, we will pay for what's being delivered, and the labor to install it will have to be dealt with the next fiscal year separately from the Prop 1B project. As you know, the Council took action recently to substitute two other projects that were originally going to be used with other funding sources. We did that in a way to maximize your full use of Prop 1B. And so we just wanted to be very clear on what we've done, bring this for you tonight so there's no ambiguity by the time this grant or this program wraps up, that you're unaware of what the funds are to be used for and then the amounts. And so that's why we're here tonight. Obviously, if we would have had more time to develop other projects, we could have worked with you and prioritized and come up with those, but it takes a lot of work to develop a public works project. By the time you have to do the plans, the specs, advertise it, award it, get materials underway, mobilize, go through the construction. And so I'm thankful for your support on the Prop 1B project that we have. As you know, when we get done, you'll have pretty much all accessibility from Winton Way to Buhack Road on a roadway which before you did not. You had curbs where you had to go out into the street and around if you were disabled. And so I think it's a big improvement in safety for the community, and it's an enhancement to the community. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. McBride? I just want to compliment you on really making the money stretch and really working on areas that were really need improvement, and it's just been moving along very, very well. And so I commend you for taking the time and effort to put it all together for us so we can use that money. Sometimes we end up losing it, but thanks to you and your staff, we were able to save it and add to the betterment of the city of Atwater. So thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Mr. Mooneyham, do you have any question? Mr. Bergman?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jeff Rivero? Okay, Mr. Joe Rivero? Do we have anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on this? Okay, we'll bring it back. And again, are we ready to, if there's no further comment, are we ready to entertain a motion? Yes, Councilman Bergman?
I move to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
Second.
It's okay. Moved by Mr. Bergman and seconded by Mr. Joe Rivero to approve the staff's recommendation. Is there any further questions? Call for the question.
Mooneyham,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Fall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 15, verbal report on the new California Energy Commission mandates and water efficiency requirements based on SB 407. Mr. Peretta, and thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Mark Prada, Chief Building Official. Just wanted, back in November, we passed the latest codes. The council passed the latest codes. And I promised that if there was anything coming down the line, there's any type of changes that might affect the people at large or any businesses and stuff, any update to the codes, I would let the council be aware of those. Some of these changes are good. Case in point is some of the energy measures. Some of them are really technical that we have in here, but basically we're increasing energy efficiencies in houses, especially new houses. Anything from 250 square feet on all the new houses are going to have to be solar ready now, which wasn't before, some more insulation and stuff like that. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention out of all these changes, your building division is myself, your lead building inspector, we're going to be expected to do a lot more through these mandates, a lot more inspection times, a lot more hands-on inspections. One of the things I wanted you to be aware of on roof replacements starting July 1st, and all these new amendments are starting July 1st. On roof replacements, we got cool roof products that have been introduced a few years ago. Now they're being mandated by the state that if somebody wants to change out the roof, they have to use a cool roof product. While that isn't necessarily a good thing, it could be a great thing for energy efficiency because of the reflectivity of the product itself increases energy savings. Problem with that, those type of roofs tend to be white in color, light beige, very high reflectivity colored. You're not going to have any dark shingles, any brown shingles and stuff like that that are approved by the state anymore. Okay, so to get around that, the state has mandated, well, if I have a brown house and I want a brown roof, I have to do something in order to make my house energy efficient. What am I going to do? So now your customer or the people out in the city of Atwater will be given a few different options. More likely their options are going to be adding insulation to ART8 value. There's going to be other options out there where they're going to change their ducting and stuff like that, and again it gets a little bit more technical. It is going to increase a little bit more in the general scale as far as charging the general customer as far as what your contractor is going to do, because your roof is not only going to need a new roof, or your house is not only going to need a new roof, but you're also going to have to start adding insulation and ducting and what have you. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up, because you will probably hear it from your constituents out there that why am I having to put insulation inside my attic? Well, it isn't something that I want to do. It's something that the state is mandating that is to be done. So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. That's probably the biggest stinger out there as far as legislation-wise in the energy savings column. Also wanted to bring you up to date on Senate Bill 407, which when created, it was to introduce high-efficiency water, faucets, water heaters, and what have you. The legislation by Calbo standards, and we're participating in Calbo. I am a Calbo member. Was the idea was great idea behind it. Poor execution in the writing of the bill. What ended up happening, if I changed my water heater, or if you changed your water heater, you were going to be expected to change out your toilets if they weren't meeting the threshold of water efficiency anymore. All your showers, your faucets inside and out, we're going to end up having to be water efficient, meet a certain standard of water efficiency. You change your roof, again, you're going to change all your plumbing inside your house. Well, that's craziness. We all know that's crazy, but that's the way the bill was mandated to go. And so with some back and forth between the building officials out there going up in Sacramento and arguing our case because it was going to create chaos and mayhem, it's been rescinded down to the point where if you want to do that in the city, you can do that. We have chosen within our jurisdiction not to do that. I'd rather none of us get hit by arrows or shotguns or anything like that, because we would not make a lot of friends real quick. So what some of the things that we've done is we excluded electrical service changeouts, HVAC changeouts, re-roof, sewer lines, siding, stucco, site work, retaining walls, water heater replacement, windows, and other repairs deemed by the building official, myself, as minor. So the constituents, our customers, will not have to go through any of this type of torment and thousands of dollars of extra costs just to change out small products, small little home improvement projects around the houses. So these are just a couple of things that I wanted to bring up to the city of, to the council, to let you know that, you know, we're monitoring and constantly monitoring all the new stuff coming out of Sacramento. Some of it doesn't make sense. Some of it are really great ideas, just poorly written. So if you have any questions for me, just let me know.
Any questions? Councilman Jeff Rivero.
2 questions. First of all, if someone chooses to do those, then they could take advantage of the HERO program that the city just approved, because I believe it was on KMPH that somebody in Fresno, that's what they did their article on, was somebody going to a cool roof. The HERO program financed it. So
okay, yeah.
If somebody in the city wanted to do these things, because you're saying we don't mandate it, but if somebody chose to do it, they'd be able to go through.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the state would rather you put a cool roof product on. And a cool roof product isn't something that you're going to buy at Lowe's right now or at Home Depot. It's going to come from a specialist, a roofing contractor, somebody who has the certifications to buy this type of product. It's going to have what we call a CRRC number on it. And they're going to be registered with the state, monitored by the state. I've got to verify, in a typical cool roof installation now, I've got to monitor that all the tags are correct. I have to also monitor out there that it is a certified product, that it isn't counterfeit marking and stuff, because they've already found counterfeit markings out there. So there's a lot to it. We got to make sure that, you know, it's all done on the up and up. So yes, but any homeowner wants to put a re-roof, do a re-roof, and they want to put a cool roof, hey, more power to them. They can definitely do that. It's just if they don't want to, for whatever reason, it's usually aesthetics, they have other options to go by. Before they didn't have other options, they were going to be forced to put a CRC product on it, and that wasn't good. So we've been in communication with the building officials, have been in communication again with Sacramento in order to help eliminate that kind of a restriction.
And with a cool roof, it's a savings for the people putting it on their home? Energy savings?
Yeah, you get, because of the reflectivity of it, you know, you're not absorbing the heat or the sun's rays as much. You have more of reflectivity, hence you get a better energy savings numbers out of it.
And what is the cost of a re-roof, permit-wise?
I've heard various numbers. Well, the permit itself is not going to change. The product itself, the materials itself is a little bit more expensive. By the time it kind of pencils out, if you buy your material for a cool roof product as opposed to insulating your house, you come out a little bit cheaper doing a cool roof product. Of course, it's all going to depend on your size of roof. And so you buy more squares of material, you're going to get a better buy. So, you know, if you have a smaller house, it might not pencil out for you. It might end up being cheaper to put in blow-in insulation. At that time, it's going to be the homeowner's choice of what he or she decides they want is best for them.
What's the average cost of a permit to re-roof?
Depending on the squares that they do, it can run anywhere from $200 to $450. And it all depends also if it's a commercial, some of the bigger commercial roofs, you know, that's a lot of, like the storage units that we did probably about 8 months ago. They're on Bellevue. I can't remember the storage units, but that was, I think it was 18,000 square feet on one, and another, I mean, you're talking, that's a, you know, for an inspector, that's a lot of work to keep your, you know, looking at a lot of roof, making sure, you know, things are safe and what have you. We had a couple of people fall through the roofs over there, and so it's, you know, you got to make sure you're Johnny on the spot, otherwise people get hurt. We get leaks and stuff like that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Joe, do you have any questions? Okay. Mr. Mooneyham? Okay, I just want to thank you for watching out for us, because, you know, the problem is that some people on fixed incomes, we can't afford some of these high-priced repairs that they request sometimes. Of, you know, it's fine if we can afford it, but sometimes we can't afford it, and I appreciate you looking after people that, you know, we can't just go ahead and rework and replumb the whole program. So thank you very much for keeping an eye out for us and for the citizens, because it's very expensive to keep a home up as it is. And then I happen to be one who, I wouldn't really want a white roof on my house, you know. I'd rather pay the extra insulation and have a roof that went with my home. But right. I mean, it's just kind of however you want to do it. But if there's no other questions, we want to thank you very much for taking the time to make the presentation to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, do we have, the next item is item number 16. Mr. Ferretta, are you going to make that presentation, or due to the fact that regarding the total cost to providing the 5,000 gallon water to the residents?
Mayor Fall and members of the City Council, unfortunately the staff person that was going to provide that report to you this evening came ill over the weekend. He called this morning and was going to go to the doctor and mentioned that he might be back in this afternoon, but unfortunately he did not make it. So if you would indulge us, if we could
just extend it to the July meeting.
Yeah, I think we can yes. better represent those numbers for you at that time.
Very good, and thank you. And we hope that the young man is recovered, because he's too valuable an asset to our community to be. So we want to make sure that he is totally well before he returns. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ferretta. So are we ready for our presentation from Mr. Vinson?
Got it all. Mr. Pietro is just printing out the...
Oh, he's printing it out for us. That would be... However, you can do a PowerPoint for us then, sir? And we have... Yes, sir.
Mind if we take a bathroom break real quick?
Okay, we'll take a... Yeah. Okay, we'll take a break. 12 now became 17. Okay, and so we will continue on with Mr. Vincent. And we have figures in front of us from the savings. And so, Mr. Vincent, are you going to explain to us what these say? Okay, good.
Did you want me to pull out the layout too, so you're looking at what we're actually doing?
That'd probably be nice if you could, whatever is the best to explain to us exactly what's happening and where we go.
Give me one more second.
Okay, then we'll.
This projector crashed my computer, but it's pulling back open right now.
That's because my rays have made it crash. I'm very good at destroying IT equipment.
Can you? No. Are you familiar with these numbers? You have a copy of them? Excuse me, Mayor, just for the sake of expediency, while he's working on the computer, could we have this fine gentleman start going over the numbers?
Mr. Boykin, we can do whatever you people wish to proceed. Okay. Mr. Boykin, you're going to have to speak into the microphone, please. Okay, page 2, second page.
I believe page 2 is the first calculation of savings from our original approval. And it's itemized every year over the 30-year period. It's a 20-year contract, and then, of course, there's the buyout option, there's the ownership option, and the projection of additional savings past the 20-year. The power generating facility has an estimated 30-year life, and so there's additional power production that the city would benefit from past the life of the PPA contract. So these were in a little reverse order. You can see that total accumulated savings at the end of the 30-year period. The 20-year period is $3.4 million. If you compare that to the other page with the expansion on well 15, you'll see a significant difference in savings over the life of the 20-year PPA.
Yeah, you'll see two things that happened there. When we originally approved the project back in July, we were also including the site that was well 21, which is out by the prison. And during this process, we discovered that that site was actually going to be regulated by the federal government, which means the approval process to build it would have been years. So that actually came off in the new system, and the well 15 was expanded. So you see in those numbers the differential between what you all approved back in July of last year with this expansion. The PPA number is adding about $45,000 on when those numbers were ran, which was actually back in January of this year. Those were ran back in January because before bringing the Casey's into this and deciding whether or not this expansion made sense, we wanted to look at it from a numbers perspective for the city. And once we saw that kind of increase, that's when we really pursued the Casey's, got meetings, and started discussions with them to find out if this would be of interest to them.
Your budget review from earlier tonight projected $2 million in utility and electrical costs. And so that's where these savings are coming from. We're targeting that specific amount of what the city pays for operations. That's why the savings is pretty high.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
This display here I'll give you an idea of exactly the size expansion of well 15. Originally, the city owned, hopefully you can still hear me, the city owned this parcel here. It's long and rectangular. It's pretty restrictive as far as the energy needs of the well itself. Only about 25% of the needed consumption of energy for that well was able to be produced by solar because of the restriction of the land. And so the expanded lease with the casings allow the system to be expanded out to this area here and basically multiplying your savings, approximately 50,000 per year. There is a cost associated with leasing that from the Casey's. That was presented earlier this evening.
We have a question, just a moment.
Yes.
Councilman Bergman.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, with this expansion, how much of this, did you say that, how much will it produce as far as what the well currently uses? Will this cover 50% of the usage?
It was more. Of the bill offset, it was closer to about 3/4, but I'd have to dig in to find exactly what it was.
Okay, and this is to the city manager. You stated that the usage was so high is because this well, the pump, was so old. Have we looked at the cost of what it would cost to replace it with a efficient well?
Yeah, I believe it's close to $1 million.
It is, okay. Okay, and then one last question I had. I see the California rebate is for 5 years. Is that just a set amount that was broken out over 5 years, or was it a 5-year program?
So their program, which last year before we took act, about the same time, their program is they pay you out monthly over 5 years. When the council decided we wanted to go after the project, approve the project, we submitted all of our reservations and everything. We're still sitting in their queue. So we don't have any money allocated towards it as of yet. We're one of thousands basically sitting in a queue waiting for funds to come available. So at this point in time, we don't know if we're going to get those additional CSI funds, but all the applications and everything has been submitted and we're just waiting.
So all these numbers we have are based on getting these rebates?
So those total, if you look at that, I think the CSI funds, I don't know the numbers in front of me, they were like 120,000 or so on the original. Yeah. 166, so it added about 166,000 of the total is what the CSI rebate added.
Councilman Jeff Rivero.
And that's California state rebate where you have 33.55.4, and then it decreases to 33 all the way down to 32. That's the CSI you're talking about.
Correct. That's the program that we filed for, but as we know right now, they don't have funding for it. So.
But even if we don't receive the funding for the CSI, we're still saving money because we're generating electricity through the solar process. Is that correct? Instead of having to pay PG&E, we are eliminating the cost of electricity. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, if you look at the 8th column over, that's titled PPA. If you look at the original numbers, the PPA savings was going to be about $50,000.
Right.
If you approve this expansion on the Casey's property, you can see that the PPA number is now at 95, and that also is taking into account the reduction of the well 21 site.
Okay. So, Councilman Jeff Rivero. Sorry.
So worst case scenario, even if there wasn't a CSI, you could subtract the 41,000 from your 136,000.
Correct.
And that would come out to 90.
If you just look at the PPA column alone, that doesn't assume any rebate.
95,000.
So that's just your net savings.
Okay.
And every year after that, it's over $100,000.
Yeah, and and that takes what to do the 30-year escalation rate for PG&E small commercial utilities. They increase at 6.7%. When we ran our models, we took the more conservative route. We backed it down to, I think these were ran at 5%. This was the same as back last year. And then your PPA is actually set to where it only increases by 3.5. So if utilities continue to follow their 30-year average or go at a higher rate, the higher rate they go, the more savings you're going to get. But for the next 20 years, your energy that's coming off this is fixed. You'll know exactly what the rate is that you're paying for.
The city is in queue with the CSI. The CSI was, it launched in 2007, signed by the previous governor. It was designed to pay down a significant portion of your solar system, the cost of it. But each year, that pay down rebate diminishes. Each year, the cost of energy goes up, and the financial incentives to make it pencil out disappear. That's bottom line. That's what we experienced, or the city experienced, with the wastewater facility plant, and up against that threshold here with this project.
Okay, do we, Mr. Bergman, Councilman Bergman, any questions in regards to this matter?
No, my questions have been answered. I just want to thank you, gentlemen, for going through and picking these up. This is what I was looking for. Yes, sir. And I want to thank you for going through and getting these for us.
Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham?
Yeah. So if these savings don't manifest themselves, then what, do you invalidate your PPE so we can go out, or PPA so we can go out and look at somebody else, or what?
The PPA is a fixed agreement.
So you're guaranteeing these are the real numbers that we're going to actually, is that what I'm hearing, or?
You can't guarantee it because what the utility is going to do over the next 20 years, we don't exactly know. We can forecast it, but your PPA rate is fixed and in contract where you can guarantee year to year exactly what you're going to pay for energy.
And we already know this is an older well. It's not an efficient well. If it goes down and there's an issue with it, can't re-drill it, arsenic, whatever, then what? What do we do then? We're in a 20-year lease that I don't think we can break. Then what?
Well, you would still benefit. Your power production facility will still produce power.
And there's also Tom, you can better answer it, but in the agreement itself, there are force majeure items. There's issues to handle that legally. The way that the previously approved agreement that we've already executed with you guys is set up is to where you're buying the power that's created, right? So in the case of well 15, for example, we're offsetting about 75% of the total. It is an old well, and more likely is that maybe down the road you do decide that you want to replace it. Well, you have a 25% cushion there in energy. So wells these days, motor systems, they are getting more efficient, but you actually have a built-in cushion on that particular site. Then the other side of this too is if some kind of catastrophe happens, whatever it may be, there are also programs to be able to deliver energy to the utilities. There's backup plans that are there, but I'm not sure in like a force majeure type event exactly how it would be.
Well, I do think the council members raised one issue that we probably need to hone in on a little bit with the Casey's attorney. And that has to do with, and maybe it can be answered in this way. Under the power purchase agreement, if well 15 goes down and we decide the city decides it is not cost effective to wellhead treat because there's contaminants that are too high or there's simply not any water there, the power that is generated by this facility would the city be able to purchase it for, let's say they relocate well 15 to another location, even though the power is being generated on the well 15 site and the Casey property, you're saying it could be purchased at the same rate for another facility that the city operates. Is that your understanding? Is that how the power purchase agreement would work?
No, the power purchase agreement.
That one predate that, we came, let me just back up. For my benefit, the power purchase agreement was for all practical purposes negotiated during 2012. We came in late 2012 and basically the deal points had been negotiated. So I'm not as refreshed on the power purchase agreement in this regard. So to answer the question, if we generate the power on this site, could it be purchased elsewhere? Would it go into the grid essentially and then be able to be purchased elsewhere, much like you would wheel water?
Yeah, that can be done through a wheeling agreement with PG&E, but it would probably be, and again, right, the utilities, I don't know exactly what they would do. As if it were done today, it would be better off to actually relocate the system to wherever the new power source is what most likely the better financial decision would be.
And it might be better described as those energy credits or benefits being applied to other meters. The city has multiple meters that are not being solarized, but PG&E will allow the solar production and the credits associated with that energy being produced to be spread out through other accounts, other meters. So you still have a generating facility, basically, that produces a significant amount of power.
Okay, and again, not to take over this discussion because this is a policy question, but it is an important issue. If the council were inclined to move forward with it this evening, subject to my confirmation of what we've just discussed, in other words, that power generated at this site, if this site no longer needs the power that's generated at this site, could be used at another site, or could be the city could take advantage of the reduced price of the power generated at this facility. If I could confirm that prior to the date, and I don't really, quite honestly, I don't really care about your investor, except you know, I mean, from a legal standpoint, that's not my problem. But I do want to take the time necessary to confirm that if necessary.
Yeah, and so it's a bigger question because as the rules stand right now, if the well were to shut off, the way PG&E is set up, you have to have the system putting into the same connection where the usage is. So for this particular case, that's why I mentioned it'd be better off to relocate the system. You can send into the grid and then basically take it off at another location, but then PG&E charges wheeling charges, they have other charges. Financially, you'd be better off relocating the system.
Then that is, okay, thank you, and I appreciate that. Then that's simpler from my standpoint, because then my task becomes one to go back to the attorney for the Caseys and make sure that the city, under that circumstance, could extricate itself from the lease based on the consideration that's already been paid to that point, and the cities could reduce its exposure vis-a-vis future rent payments. I think that might be the way to do it, and I had not thought about Commissioner or Councilmember Mooneyham's concern, but it's a legitimate one, and I think we probably need to document that and be sure we're covered. And we can do that in relatively short order, I would think. Now, that's not to address the other concerns that have been raised, just that one.
Yeah, that's just a concern. So if you had to relocate it, basically your lease with the Caseys would be able to terminate.
Yeah, and I don't want to, they're not here, and I don't want to speak for them, and I don't want to speak for their attorney. I mean, I'm just not in a position to do that. But, so there would be a subject to in any motion, if there was a motion tonight, if that was the direction the council wanted to go.
Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham?
In the event that unfolded as described, who would be held responsible financially for moving the system?
Again, I'd have to look at the language in the PPA, but the way I believe it's written is the burden of that cost would fall on the city. Yeah, if you're moving a well, now again, I think you also get into the force majeure case because if all of a sudden the water was, filled with arsenic and then you had to take it out and there was reasons for it. If you arbitrarily just said, hey, you know what, this system's old, we want to dig a new well over here, so we're going to put it over here, then that for sure would be 100% cost of the city.
How much does that cost? Round ballpark? Similar to a new installation?
Oh no, because all the equipment.
Okay, it's already assembled and everything.
Yeah, I would say probably maybe.
Your largest expense is going to be labor. It's basically the dismantling of the system and then the reinstallation. Be based on the number of panels, number of man hours, ballpark. What's the size? What's the size of that specific?
I think it's 3 plus the 2 combined, like 600-700.
Okay.
I want to say it's somewhere right in there. But see, the other thing, the Caseys are expressing interest in wanting power off of it too.
So labor right now, commercially, is about $1 per watt. And so dismantling it would come very close to that, depending on the size of the system, when you measure it in wattage itself, because of the size of the panels. You can probably trim some of that off if you look for more affordable bids, is the best way I can describe it, to dismantle it and move it. But at $1 a watt, you're looking at almost $400K to move that thing.
Okay.
So just to make sure I'm clear, pending the city attorney's research into it, if the well went bad and we did end up having to move the system for whatever reason, we couldn't re-drill there, needed to move it again, $300,000 to $400,000 cost to the city, right? Okay, just want to paint the entire picture, right? Okay.
But we could establish this system at another well site, could we not?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Bergman?
Thank you. I really think the points the councilman brings up are very legitimate, but my thinking, it's not so much the arsenic or that. The issue that is real that we're dealing with now are the water strata. The water levels are decreasing because of the drought we're in, and it's very possible that well could collapse. So there are very real possibilities with this well going bad, because the well itself is old, so the casing's are old. You know, there are some very real concerns that we do have to be aware of. So.
Okay, any other questions on this matter? Okay, Councilman Jeff Rivera?
I was going to ask on the arsenic or well collapsing, is that different than the city just saying, hey, you know, we just want to shut this well down? Because I know you used a French word there, and I'm not too sure if I can repronounce it, but so as long as it's not a city willingness to want it shut down, if there was an actual emergency, then how does that relocation work?
Well, and that's part of what we'd have to dig into the original PPA language to see exactly how it's handled.
Because I don't see the city saying, okay, we're just going to shut this well down and move it. It's got to be
It
an
would
issue.
be extenuating circumstances, and there's the French word, the force majeure clauses, basically like acts of God, is how it's best defined, right? So if things happen like that, and it's common, right? Earthquakes, these type of things, they're addressed in the agreements.
Okay.
Again, we have a signed agreement for the original, just the small strip. The extension over to the Casey's is kind of this other subject that's there. But as you've probably heard, the Casey's are also expressing interest in wanting power. So in the case of emergency like that, you might see a case where we say, hey, okay, this other piece, the Casey's would rather want to take that, so you wouldn't have to move that. You just have to move the strip. I mean, there's a lot of solutions that can be done to it if you hit that extreme circumstance.
And then I was going to ask Mr. Terpstra on the Casey's case, basically if there was an act of God and we had to move it, there would be no reason to pay the rent on something that we're not using anymore. So it would be beneficial for the city to say, if we were going to move it, that the rent would stop, right?
Well, we would put ourselves in a position of having to essentially negotiate that out with them. I'm not convinced that the gradual accretion of arsenic to the point where it exceeds a standard is an event of force majeure. I'm not even sure that I'm not going there yet.
Yeah,
I think the gradual depletion of the groundwater, I'm not sure that would meet force majeure either. I think we probably need to take a look at that within the context of the PPA. I don't think it's rocket science. I think we can probably work it out relatively quickly. But we do need to assign responsibility for what happens. The other thing I think that the piece of information that probably would be helpful for the council would be, so well 15 is an old well. There's a lot of old wells. Is it an old well that we think is going to be around for 20 years? Or can anybody prognosticate that? Does anybody know? Or is there within any sort of a reasonable cycle where you would go someplace else? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not a hydrologist, and I think that's something that council needs to probably at least have some understanding of. And I assume somebody on staff has at least broached that subject, maybe not. So We can probably get answers to these questions in a fairly short period of time.
City Manager Petro?
Sorry to interrupt, Tom. I think in the past what we've done, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, we just drill right next to the old well. I think we've done that a couple of times in the past. We don't move the location. We just drill in the same area as the well if the water table goes down. Scott? I think
It's specific to the location. It's big enough, it will work. The problem, quite honestly, is you don't have someone who is an engineer that can answer these questions. It's not as simple as, yeah, I can or can't.
Okay. So if we have no more questions of the people, I will ask the public if they have anyone that wishes to come forward and ask questions. Seeing none, we will bring it back to the dais. Is there any more questions from the council persons in regards to this matter? Councilman Joe Rivero.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I know there's no engineer here, but I understand that there's a certain length, from my understanding, that one well can be drilled next to another, that they can't be any closer than that. So that's one of the things maybe you can just find out about and bring it back to the council with the allotted, space that there is, because and I don't know the numbers, but it's just...
No, I don't either, and I don't even want to get into it, but I think the point we want to point out here is that you're not going to have much area left over with the proposed solar panels for that location. So this is obviously moving from solar to a question about hydrology and your well systems that no one here is prepared to talk about tonight. You don't have an engineer on staff. You don't have anyone that's capable of doing that. People out there that can do that, but it's going to take them time and money to get the questions answered for you and get back to you. But I'm asking, there's no one here to bring up the location just so you can physically see. You're going to cover a very majority of that site. You're not going to have any room, I don't think. You would have to take panels out, I guess, to find the location. It's a very small impacted site to begin with.
Yeah, that was my whole point, if you could or not, by just knowing the distance in between. One other thing, too, is that I know there's a lot of talk about, what happens. It would be $400,000 if the worst-case scenario comes about. But then we have to look at this. We can not do it, not save potentially $3 million, and let's say their numbers are off by 1/3, or save $2 million. And so you're taking that risk. I think anything that you do, whether you purchase vehicles or place well in, you're going to take a risk one way or another, but you got to look at the benefits too, that there's a potential saving of $2 million or to $3 million as they've been presenting for that risk factor of $400,000. So there's that. Also, we don't know, but there could be even more potential for the city, because if a well goes out, we're not just talking about the $400,000 to change it, it's another $1.5 million or whatever to drill a new well. And so if we didn't do something where we're saving $1 or $2 million right now to potentially pay for another well in the future, because some of this savings that we're having, it has to go into looking for the future, putting it into the funds for drilling new wells, because I think that fund is pretty much depleted. So,
Okay.
So there is risk I see, but I can also see a benefit.
Benefit, absolutely. Okay, if there's no more questions, let's, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we ask Mr. Terpstra to look into the items he spoke of, the force of God happening, check out to see how the PPA works, but I'd like to move forward with the contract, and then if Mr. Terpstra finds anything in the next couple of days that he feels should be addressed to the city council, we could have a special meeting.
Would you also add the part about the contract with the landowners too, where you were going to take a look at?
Well, yeah, we would need to be sure that if well 15 can't be economically used in the future for whatever reason, that we would have the ability to avoid the future year's lease payments or leasing fees, we call them in the agreement. They call it rent or whatever. That's number one. The city clerk has an enormous phone over here that she was able to pull up the power purchase agreement on, so she's much more tech savvy than I am. My little measly iPhone, I couldn't even read it. In any event, it's almost as big as the city manager's phone, just for those who have a frame of reference tonight. In any event, under the power purchase agreement, virtually anything other than a force majeure event, a catastrophic failure, act of God, that triggers a relocation of a facility, the city is obligated to pay the cost of relocating the facility and to pay the host, which is, or I'm sorry, to pay the provider the cost of the energy that it would have sold to us, and a whole variety of it. So basically, the power purchase agreement is fairly restrictive as it relates to the city in that event, and that is a risk that the council is going to have to just assume. I don't know that we're going to be able to go out to the principals of Conergy and its affiliates in this case and renegotiate the power purchase agreement to cover that risk. I just don't think that's going to be something that we're going to be able to do. I could be wrong, but I don't think it is. I think that's a risk that you're going to have to just take on, and as it is with any facility that you locate under this power purchase agreement. Virtually anything that you do to locate a facility, if you end up having to move it, you're going to pay the cost. This isn't any different in that regard. The only difference is that you have obligations to the Casey family under the lease. That is what we need to zero in on and make sure we can get ourselves out of, because I don't think it's realistic to sit here tonight and suggest we're going to renegotiate this deal with Conergy. I think you're just going to have to accept the restrictions that are already in the power purchase agreement that put the risk financially on relocation on the city. And I think that's probably not going to change with respect to this facility. So what's realistic tonight, if the council wants to move forward, is to, as I said, assume that risk, as you have under the power purchase agreement already, vis-a-vis Conergy, but to instruct staff to work out lease language with the Caseys that would avoid the lease payments in future years if we end up having to relocate those facilities. And there would be costs in terms probably of restoring that property. If I were representing the Caseys, and I'm not, but if I were, I would say, city, if you're going to pull this whole thing up out of the ground, you're going to make sure you leave this in good condition, and so there would be some costs associated with that, and you know, that would just all be part of the mix. So you're evaluating savings that are documented here to the best of, I believe, to the best of the ability of the parties. The city's not in a great position to evaluate this one way or the other financially, but you know, the numbers appear to be well thought out. What you have to do, though, is work on the lease with the Caseys, and so if the council wants to move forward tonight, that would be the instruction.
So that should be a part of the motion, is that that the city attorney would then go ahead and work on the lease agreement with the Caseys in lieu of the fact that the possibility of us having to be move the site. Is that correct, sir?
Well, it is, and I guess the only difficulty we have, and you know, I think the council may have to put itself in a position of telling the investor, if we don't get this done by Friday, you're either going to have to just give us more time or pull the plug, because I don't know how realistic it is to amend this lease language with the Caseys and bring it back to the council. You know, we'll do it as soon as I have consensus. I will call the city clerk and tell her to please put a 24-hour notice of a special meeting on, assuming we can corral enough council members to attend such a meeting. That's really the timeline we're looking at. I don't see another way to do this and say, well, it's subject to me working out language that I think is appropriate. I mean, ultimately, the lease language has to be agreeable and workable from the city council standpoint, not mine.
Councilman Jeff Rivero?
Well, basically, the contract with the Casey should already include that you leave it like you found it. And I don't know what the legal term is, but they'll clear it off for us to do what we need to do, and when we pull out, no matter when we pull out, we're supposed to leave it the way it is. So basically, the only thing we're adding to the contract would be that if in any case the city decides to remove these before the 20 years, that basically we stop paying rent, because when it comes down to it, that's what the $10,000 a year is for, is renting the property, right?
I'm gonna, excuse me, we have a motion on the floor, but we don't have a second, so I'm gonna go ahead and second it, so we're now supposed to be able to discuss. My apologies, we should have had a second on that.
So
Okay.
my motion was to go ahead and adopt this and have the attorney work with the Casey's to add language that in the case that we remove it, that we stop paying rent.
Is that?
Yeah, I think you could frame the motion that way. The motion could be to proceed with the transaction subject to obtaining agreement by the Casey's that in the event that the city needs to terminate the lease, that it can do so provided it removes the equipment from the site in a manner acceptable to the Casey's, and that future rent payments can be avoided. If we can get that language, then there would be no need to bring it back to the council. If we cannot get that language, or I have any concern with the language that we come up with, then we would bring it back to the council at that point. Now,
Bringing it back to the council on Thursday or so, or what?
Yeah, or Friday.
Or Friday. Okay.
Right. And that's subject to making sure we have enough council members. But I think I need to give the attorney for the Casey's the benefit of the doubt here in terms of timing and meeting his schedule. And I'll make the call the first thing in the morning. So
Thank you.
We can get that done. So we'll know by close of business Thursday whether we have that language or not. And if we don't, we'll schedule a council meeting to figure out what to do next.
I'll contact the investor first thing in the morning too, because they are very reasonable people. And if I explain the issue that's brought up there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we
So-
have
Okay, so that would be the motion then, to proceed, subject to the ability to get that language to my satisfaction, and if not, by Thursday afternoon, to schedule a subsequent follow-up city council meeting.
Is that agreed with you, sir? Okay. And so that's Mr. Rivero's motion, and it's my second. Okay. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Bergman?
Well, I think there's a definite risk here, but I think the possible gain is worth it, so I'll vote yes.
Mooneyham?
This is exposing this council and the city to a fantastic liability. I don't know how the other four members of this council can listen to what the city attorney just said and still be okay to move forward with this. It's enormously irresponsible, in my opinion. $400,000, which is an unknown cost potentially to move a system.
Excuse me, Mr. Mooneyham.
Stuck with a 20-year lease
Excuse
with
me,
$200,000.
Mr. Mooneyham.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I happen.
You've allowed other members to make comments when they vote.
But, sir, we do not appreciate you stating that the rest of us are irresponsible. We have the right to vote and determine the way we do, but I appreciate you not using the word irresponsible in referring to the rest of the council. Thank you.
$600,000 in potential additional costs that were unknown, 30 minutes to review numbers that were brought up here. I think this is an entirely atrocious thing that's going on here. And if and when that well goes down, and if we're strapped with that entire lease payment, the people of the city are going to know about it.
Thank you.
No.
Jeff Rivero?
Yes.
Joe Rivero?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Council comments and requests for future agenda items. We will start with Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham.
None.
We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Bergman.
Well, it'd be Councilman, yeah, thank you. I just got promoted. Well, thank you.
Oh,
Mayor.
pardon me.
I'll
It's
stick
a
with
long day,
Councilman.
thank you.
I'm good with that. I'd just
That's
like to
all
wish
right.
everybody a happy 4th of July. Let's please keep it safe.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, there's a reason that fireworks are called safe and sane. Let's please use
Isn't that
those
the
and
truth?
keep away from the illegals. They are a definite danger, but enjoy your holidays.
Okay, Councilman Joe Rivero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to invite everybody out there, whether you're from Atwater, Merced, Madera, Fresno, Livingston. We have a wonderful 4th of July. We have one of the longest running in the entire valley consecutively. So I'd like to invite you and your families to come on out. Bring your families, have a lot of fun. There's a lot of activities and there's a great parade. So I'm inviting everybody in the community to come out to our 4th of July and have a good time.
Councilman Jeff Rivero.
Yes, I'd like to thank the Environmental Science Academy for the invitation. Went there. It's all the environmental science classes from Atwater, Buhag, Golden Valley, and I believe Merced High School. They had a wonderful event. It was nice to see kids learning about Yosemite and Big Sur and other areas in the state of California. I also would like to thank everybody. Happy 4th of July. My son's 8th birthday is today, so happy birthday, Jeffrey.
Oh, wow.
And I'd also like to ask the chief, have we started to schedule our August 16th Fire Department versus Police Department softball game, our annual city birthday softball game?
Yeah, I believe Fire Chief Pimentel has scheduled that. Don't look at me, I'm not playing that.
I heard you were starting pitcher this year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all of us for, this has been a long day and a long meeting, but we got a lot of things done, and I just wanted to thank you all. We started early and we're ending up late, and we've decided we made some major decisions this evening. So I want to thank each and every one of you for participating and working together to get the job done. Councilman Jeff Rivero.
I forgot one thing. I was going to thank our city manager for a wonderful town hall meeting that we had June, what was that, the 16th? And we're having another one in July, but it was a wonderful event that the chief city manager put together. Had a lot of helpful information. We were able to tell people about the HERO program that the city council voted 5-0 on, and I made sure that all the people there that attended knew that the city council was 100% behind it, and they appreciated your efforts to help them on energy and water efficiency. So thank you, Chief, and I know Dan was there and any other city employee that helped out. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to wish each two, and we still need money for the 4th of July, so we can, if you see one of those red containers, put your extra change in it. We're going to adjourn our meeting in memory of two outstanding individuals. The first one is Ann Bettis. Ann Bettis is the wife of David Bettis. She's a longtime educator for the city of the Atwater City, Merced Union High School District. She's and we just went to, she had a long struggle with lupus, and so we want to have our prayers out for she and what she's contributed to the education of our young people. The other person we want to adjourn in memory of is Army Specialist Terry Herney, his service was today, and he gave his life for the service of all of us, and so we want to send out our prayers and thoughts to his family. And with that, I want to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.